Chapter 4798. Lin, he could only keep a distance from his opponent. His mind was quickly thinking of countermeasures. This opponent who had mastered the blade force was really not easy to deal with. Even his strongest 5 elements killing aura could not do anything to him, let alone his other moves. Even if he found another good opportunity like the one just now, it would be difficult to pose a real threat. At this time, Lung Rufin was closing in step by step. The ice blade in his hand had unknowingly become even more spectacular and terrifying. It had now reached a length of 10 feet and could easily sweep through half the arena. Even if Lin was fast, it would still be difficult for him to dodge. Seeing that the other party was about to slash at him again, Lin suddenly had an idea. Just now, he had managed to escape by catching him off guard. If he were to attack again, he might not be able to escape unscathed. At this critical moment, Lin suddenly had an idea. Got it. Without waiting for Lung Rufin to chop down with his saber again, a blue electric arc suddenly appeared in Lin Yi's hand. This scene startled Lung Rufin. His saber technique was already complete. He was not afraid of anything except this lightning martial technique. Because whether it was the surrounding world of ice and snow or the ice blade in his hand, they were all good carriers for the lightning. He could cut through the 5 elements of murderous aura with one slash, but he couldn't cut through the lightning with one slash. That would only cause the lightning to reach him faster. This kid's tricks were endless. For the first time, Lung Rufin started to take Lin seriously. If Lin had used a lightning martial technique from the start, then even if Lin could not contend against him head-on, he would at least be able to put up a fight and not end up in such a sorry state. Looking at the electric arcs jumping in Lin Yi's palm, Lung Rufin's first reaction was to withdraw his blade. The huge ice blade in his hand could greatly suppress Lin Yi, but it was also a natural target. Lin Yi didn't even need to attack him. As long as the electric arcs landed on the huge ice blade, he would definitely be hit. That was what Lin Yi was thinking. A blue light flashed across the air, and the electric arc jumped onto the ice blade. At the same time, however, Lung Rufin's reaction shocked Lin Yi. He didn't throw the ice blade away, but swung it at Lin Yi without a care in the world, as if he was putting his life on the line. What a ruthless man! Lin Yi's expression changed, and he hurriedly used his extreme butterfly subtle steps to avoid it. However, this ice blade was too big, especially with the restriction of the edge of the arena. With Lin Yi's current speed, it was impossible for him to avoid it completely. Even if he could barely avoid the main body of the ice blade, he couldn't avoid the terrible saber momentum that followed. Boom! Lin Yi was instantly crushed to the ground by the saber force, creating a human-shaped pit. He then spat out a large mouthful of blood, suffering serious internal injuries. At the same time, Lung Rufin was also hit. The power of thunder and lightning flowed through the giant ice blade and instantly invaded his body. His whole body suddenly felt numb, and his ice-cold expression, which had never changed for tens of thousands of years, became much more interesting. However, after a while, when the power of thunder and lightning on his body dissipated, Lung Rufin did not fall down. Except that his body was still a little numb, he was basically uninjured. Looking at Lin Yi, who was crushed to the ground by his saber momentum, he said coldly, "It's a pity that the only move you can use to deal with me is so weak." He was not as weak as Kong Ming Ming, nor was he trapped in an iron shell like Kong Ming Ming. In the past, Lin Yi could electrocute Kong Ming Ming half to death with all his strength, but now, when he used it on Lung Rufin, it could only be regarded as a tickle at most. Hearing Lung Rufin's words, Lin Yi, who was pressed to the ground by the saber momentum and spat out blood, could not help but smile bitterly. Since he mastered the power of thunder and lightning in the trial of West Island, he had never had a chance to practice it well. During this period of time, he had made no progress. Otherwise, he would not have fallen into such an embarrassing situation. If he had known this earlier, he should not have been busy controlling the ancient battleship during the month at sea. If he had focused on practicing the power of thunder and lightning, it might have worked wonders. However, it was too late to think more. Lung Rufin walked to Lin Yi again, and the cold tip of the saber was right on Lin Yi's forehead. He gave an ultimatum: admit defeat or die. Lin Yi grinned, but before he could speak, someone in the audience suddenly exclaimed, "The incense stick has been extinguished." The crowd suddenly burst into an uproar. The time it took for an incense stick to burn was up, and according to the rules, the battle should end here. Of course, this was not an official competition, and it was up to the two people in the stand to decide whether to follow the rules or not. As long as Lung Ruofan was willing, no one would say anything if he continued to slash like this. However, Lung Ruofan did not mean to kill him. The surrounding ice and snow quietly disappeared, and the ice saber against Lin Yi's forehead also disappeared. He said expressionlessly, "You have lost. Hand over the beauty elixir and the thunder Xianrat Tan." Lin Yi smiled and struggled to get up from the ground. Without saying a word, he turned around and walked off the stage. Lung Ruofan frowned and was about to stop him. However, Lin Yi suddenly stopped, turned his head, and looked at him seriously. "Which eye of yours saw me lose? Did you kill me, or did I admit defeat?" "You." Lung Ruofan was speechless for a moment. Even a blind man present could tell who won and who lost, but he had to admit that Lin Yi's words made sense. Since he did not die and did not admit defeat, then who said that Lin Yi must have lost? But no matter how he looked at it, Lin Yi was acting shamelessly. Lung Ruofan was not a man of principle. If the other party wanted to act shamelessly, he did not mind fighting privately. Acting shamelessly in front of absolute strength was courting death. However, what Lin Yi said next made him dispel this idea. "Let's continue tomorrow." Lin Yi waved his hand with difficulty. Then he carried Ning Shuifei and limped away under everyone's gaze. Lung Ruofan stood on the stage and looked deeply at Lin Yi without saying a word. Then he jumped off the stage and left with Yang Qianxue, who had put on her veil again. What the hell is Lung doing? This guy is inexplicably soft-hearted. Just now, he directly killed Lin Yi with a saber. Why did he have to go through so much trouble? Ren Zhongyuan saw this scene and was so angry that he stomped his feet and cursed. He paid the price of a beauty elixir not to see these two people appreciate each other and stop when the time was right. He was looking forward to a fight to the death. He did not expect this result. Chapter 4799. That's right. It's best if both sides are injured and die together, and then we can get back all the beauty pills and the thunder mysterious Rod Tan. That'll be a big profit. Ren Zhongyuan sneered. I don't think so. With Lin Yi's strength, he can't pose any threat to Lung Ruofan at all. Today he was beaten in his best state. What's more, he will be injured tomorrow. I think even if he doesn't die, he will lose half of his life. Xiaotian analyzed. Die. Just die quickly. Ren Zhongyuan cursed with a vicious face. How are you? Do you want me to go to Master for help? After Ning Shuifei helped Lin Yi back to the room of the newcomer's courtyard, she looked at Lin Yi's pale face with a worried face. She regretted it now. If she had known this from the beginning, she would have given the beauty pills to that woman. In this way, there would not have been so many things later, and Lin Yi would not have been injured. No, this little injury is not a problem. Have you forgotten my self-healing ability? Lin Yi looked a little tired, but he still forced a smile and told Ning Shuifei to rest assured. Oh. Ning Shuifei nodded again and again. Since Lin Yi could even survive the fatal injury in the trial of West Island, this injury was really not a big deal. However, Lin Yi was simply holding on at this time. This injury was far less serious than the one in the trial of West Island, and there was no wound on the surface, but in fact, he had been seriously injured inside. Otherwise, he would not have spat out several mouthfuls of blood just now. After all, Lung Ruofan's knife was not so easy to bear. You go out first. I have to close myself to heal. Tomorrow, I have to deal with that guy. Lin Yi smiled at Ning Shuifei with difficulty. Ning Shuifei wanted to persuade Lin Yi to give up on the challenge, but now was not the time to talk. She could only nod and say, all right then. You heal yourself first. If there's anything, call me. I'll be waiting outside. Ning Shuifei stayed outside for the whole night. She was lying on the table in a daze and didn't even realize that she was picked up. She only woke up when she was placed on the bed. She opened her eyes in a daze and said in surprise, "Linny, are your injuries healed?" "It's all done." Lin E smiled. Although he had been shaken by the saber yesterday, it was not a fatal injury. As long as he could recover, the other minor injuries could be easily healed. Great! Ning Shuifei was so excited that she jumped up from the bed and hugged Lin E like an octopus. The girl's soft and supple body made Lin E confused, especially when the girl's clothes were disheveled. At this moment, if he looked down, he would see things that he shouldn't see. This early in the morning was enough to make his blood boil. Cough, cough. At this moment, a few awkward coughs came from the door. Lin E and Ning Shuifei were scared and quickly separated. They turned around and saw that Chun Xingma had walked in. At this moment, the elegant and intellectual Vice Dean had a shy blush on her face. She had gone out to do something yesterday and had only just returned to the academy. After hearing about the battle between Lin E and Lung Rufeng, she rushed over. She didn't expect to see the two of them hugging each other like glue. It was as if she had bumped into a happy couple. Although she was experienced, she still couldn't help but blush. "Master, you're back." Ning Shuifei quickly tidied up her clothes and ran over to greet her. "Vice Dean Shun." Linny also cupped his hands in greeting. "Yes, I heard that you're going to fight Lung Rufeng today. Are you confident?" In order to cover up the awkwardness, Chun Xingma went straight to the point. "This." A bitter smile appeared on Lin Yi's face. At this time, there was no need to put on airs. He could only honestly say, "To be honest, I really don't have much confidence." Chun Xingma had already guessed that this would be the case. No matter how strong Lin Yi was, it was impossible for him to be Lung Rufeng's opponent. Even if they were both super geniuses who could challenge above their level, their strength was on a completely different level. If Lin Yi could still defeat Lung Rufeng, then it was simply heaven-defying. "Then, do you still want to go?" Chun Xingma looked at Lin Yi and said, "I don't need to say more about the principle of being flexible. Even if it's for Fei Fei, you have to endure this." "Linny, why don't you listen to Master?" Ning Shuifei pleaded. Her poor strength didn't mean that she had poor judgment. What's more, in the situation yesterday, everyone could see the gap in strength between them. Besides, with yesterday's experience, Lung Rufeng would definitely not show mercy this time, and it was very likely that he would kill on the spot. Lin Yi looked at Chun Xingma and then at Ning Shuifei, who was nervous. He couldn't help but smile and said, "For Fei Fei, I can't avoid this fight today. Otherwise, it will not only ruin my own reputation, but also the reputation of the whole West Island." But Ning Shuifei still wanted to persuade him. Although she was the princess of West Island, in fact, the reputation of West Island was far less important than Lin Yi in her eyes. As long as Lin Yi was fine, it didn't matter if his reputation was damaged. "Don't worry. It's one thing to accept the challenge, but it's another thing to win. There's no rule that you have to win a fight, right? If the situation is not good, I will admit defeat. Lung Rufeng just wants the beauty elixir and the thunder Xianrot Tan. If it's not necessary, he won't kill me." Lin Yi comforted her. Ning Shuifei and Chun Xingma looked at each other. It was true. As long as Lin Yi was willing to admit defeat, his life would be safe, and it wouldn't affect the reputation of West Island. It was natural for Yuan Ying and Xin Sheng to lower their heads. "Well, then you must be careful. Don't force yourself. As long as we're alive, there's hope. Even if we can't win this time, we will definitely beat him next time." Ning Shuifei held Lin Yi's arm and said, "Well, I know." After Lin Yi nodded to Chun Xingma beside him, he immediately set out for the arena. He was not only fearless, but also a little impatient. It was rare for him to meet such a powerful opponent like Lung Rufeng. After experiencing yesterday's crushing defeat, his blood was once again boiling. Some people were born to fight, and a strong opponent could not make him afraid, but excited. When the three of them arrived at the arena, they were surprised by the scene in front of them. It was just the morning when the sun had just risen, but the arena was already crowded with people. Lung Ruffling had been waiting for a long time on the main arena. Obviously, the audience under the arena came to see him. The grim machete god had almost become the name card of Soaring Cloud Academy. Everyone here knew Lung Ruffling. Chapter 4800. When Lin Yi stood still on the ring, there were people in the audience who took the initiative to light incense for them. Everyone was looking forward to the second battle between the two. Of course, no one here was optimistic about Lin Yi. They simply wanted to see Lung Ruffin make his move. They wanted to see how powerful the cold-faced saber god was. That was all. Hee. Lung Ruffin is finally enlightened. It's rare to see killing intent on his body. It seems that he wants to kill Lin Yi. He should have done this long ago. Ren Zhongyuan looked at the scene and smiled proudly. It's normal. Lung Ruffin is not a good-tempered person. Yesterday, he was fooled by Lin Yi. It would be strange if he didn't get serious. If he was fooled by Lin Yi like yesterday, where would he put his face? Yi Xiaotian had an expression as if he had expected it. Not bad, not bad. Hurry up and fight. I'm already impatient. Ren Zhongyuan's face was filled with indescribable resentment. In the past 2 days, his father, Ren Tianzhao, had helped him resolve the murderous aura of the 5 elements in his body. Every time, he had to endure inhuman pain, which almost tortured him to the point of collapse. He hated Lin Yi to the bone and wished that this kid would be torn into pieces. At this moment, the 2 people on the ring had once again set up their stances. Lung Ruffin used the world of ice and snow as soon as he came up, holding a giant ice blade in his hand. Lin Yi also entered the extreme state without saying a word. There was no other way. If he didn't do this, he wouldn't be able to play at all. It had to be said that even if it was greatly weakened by the world of ice and snow, the speed displayed by the extreme butterfly subtle steps was still extraordinary. In particular, it was extremely agile in dodging and turning. Lin Yi actually avoided Lung Ruffin's blade without any danger. Lung Ruffin once again looked at Lin Yi in surprise. It seemed that this guy not only recovered from his injuries, but even his true chi had returned to its peak state. How'd he do it? It should be known that even for him, although he did not expend much energy in the battle yesterday, it was impossible for him to completely replenish his energy in one night. There were still some losses. This was a problem that almost all practitioners had to face. It was refreshing to fight, but it was a long process to recover. Lung Ruffin's recovery speed was already very fast. In yesterday's battle, he had lost about 30% of his true chi, and after one night, he had recovered about 20%. In other words, the amount of true chi in his body was only 90% of his peak. Of course, even if Lung Ruffin only had 30% of his true chi left, he would still be able to defeat Lin Yi. This would not affect the result at all. However, when facing the lively Lin Yi, Lung Ruffin subconsciously became a bit wary, but then he felt like he was making a big deal out of nothing. In yesterday's battle, he had clearly seen Lin Yi's strength. Although Lin Yi had many tricks up his sleeves, in the end he could not overcome the huge gap in strength. Why would he be afraid of this guy? Lung Ruffin could not help but laugh. After staying in the Xuanjia Sea for so long, he had really become paranoid. He thought that this place was as strong as that place. It was too ridiculous. Looking at Lung Ruffin suddenly laughing for no reason, Lin Yi was slightly shocked. What the hell was this person doing? However, he would not think so much. Since the opponent was distracted, then this was a rare flaw and opportunity. Lin Yi did not hesitate to get close to Lung Ruffin. There was already a huge gap in strength. If he continued to blindly defend, he would really have no chance at all. He had to seize the opportunity to attack with all his strength and replace defense with offense. A blue electric arc flashed out of thin air and directly attacked Lung Ruffin along the giant ice blade. After a whole night of recovery and thinking, this was the best starting move that Lin Yi could think of. It did not seek to kill, but to paralyze. As long as this electric arc could have a momentary paralyzing effect, it could create an opportunity for the next strong attack. Only in this way could he have a chance to win. Sure enough, Lung Ruffin directly fell into a state of paralysis like yesterday, and his movements obviously became a lot slower and stiffer. At the same time, Lin Yi flashed in front of him, and the most powerful five elements murderous aura suddenly attacked with a dragon roar. Lung Rufin's heart skipped a beat, and he was forced to stagger back 2 steps. This scene suddenly made the audience exclaim. It seemed that the West Island's Fuma was going to turn over a new leaf. But soon they knew that they thought too much. After Lung Rufin was forced back 2 steps, he forcibly got rid of the state of paralysis and suddenly attacked. The five elements' murderous aura close at hand was directly cut into 2 pieces, and Lin Yi was blasted away by the aftermath of the knife momentum. All his efforts were in vain. As Lin Yi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, he couldn't help but think it was a pity. When he looked up, he found that the corner of Lung Rufin's mouth was also bloody, and he immediately understood what was going on. Lung Rufin's injury was not caused by his five elements' murderous aura, but by biting his tongue in order to break the state of paralysis. Under the stimulation of the sharp pain, he naturally wouldn't feel numb anymore. Lung Rufin was really a tough opponent to deal with in an instant. The arena fell into a brief confrontation again. Lung Rufin was re-examining his opponent, while Lin Yi was thinking about the next step to deal with it. The thunder and lightning started with the most powerful five elements murderous aura. This was the simplest and most effective powerful combo he could think of. It was a pity that this kind of routine could be used unexpectedly once, but it would be ineffective if it was used for the second time. He had to think of another way. Without waiting for Lung Rufin to make a move, Lin Yi suddenly used the extreme butterfly subtle steps again. He still started with the power of thunder and lightning. This was a time-tested move. Even someone as strong as Lung Rufin couldn't effectively deal with it in a short time. He could only rely on his powerful strength to withstand it, and, at the same time, suppress the paralysis effect to the minimum. Unavoidable speed and domineering lethality. It was precisely because of these 2 advantages that all practitioners of the Thunder attribute were terrified. It was also because of this that any practitioner of the Thunder attribute was almost invincible among those of the same level. However, there were very few practitioners of the Thunder attribute in this world. Most people might not even see one in their entire lives. Now, Lin Yi could only be regarded as a half-baked Thunder element cultivator at most. He only had speed, but no lethality. Otherwise, with his strength, he could really deal with Lung Rufin. Feeling the familiar thunder and lightning paralysis again, Lung Rufin frowned slightly. Although he had gradually begun to adapt to this feeling and the paralysis effect was getting weaker, he still couldn't help but be a little angry when Lin Yi did it again and again. Bang! 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 Chapter 48:01. Attacking while restraining was the backup plan that Lin Yi came up with. Only by ensuring that he had enough speed could he avoid the opponent's ice blade. Although the 1,000 legs of frenzy did not cause much damage, as long as he persisted, it would accumulate. What Lin Yi was least afraid of was the consumption of true chi. Since there was no chance of winning in a head-on confrontation, then he would fight with attrition. As long as there was time, Lin Yi could replenish it. Although this strategy was a bit shameless, as long as he could win, who cared so much? The restraining strategy was played well, and Lung Rufin seemed to be completely led by the nose. However, after a while, his voice suddenly sounded in the chaos. "Is this all you have?" Lin Yi was shocked when he heard this, and then the warning sound of the jade pendant rang crazily in his mind. He immediately withdrew with all his strength without hesitation. Not only did he use the extreme butterfly microstep, this time he even used the skill of the true chi jet. In order to escape, he had to be as fast as possible. It might be the difference between life and death. The giant ice blade was almost close to the tip of Lin Yi's nose, and a terrible wound was instantly created on his face by the aftermath. At the same time, the majestic knife momentum once again blasted Lin Yi to the ground. The situation was the same as yesterday. The only difference was that this time, Lin Yi was more seriously injured, and he could not get up for a long time. Lung Rufin walked to the front of Lin Yi and was about to force Lin Yi to admit defeat, but at this time he heard Ning Shuefei shouting, "The incense has been extinguished. The time is up." Ahem. Lin Yi climbed up from the ground with difficulty and staggered down the arena. He left a sentence that was very familiar to Lung Rufin but made him speechless. "It seems that my luck is good. Let's continue tomorrow." Watching Lin Yi's awkward back disappear from his sight, Lung Rufin was stunned on the arena and could not say a word. Below the arena, Ren Zhongyuan was so angry that he stomped his feet and scolded, "This trash." He couldn't even kill a mere Lin Yi, and even this kind of trash could go to the profound Steppe Sea region. No wonder he was beaten back. He was about to go mad with anger. Yesterday, Lin Yi had escaped from a calamity, but today he actually did it again. Was there an end to this? But no matter how angry Ren Zhongyuan was, there was nothing he could do, unless he dared to throw caution to the wind and hit Lin Yi in private. He could only wait for the result of the battle in the arena. As for assassinating West Island's Fuma inside the academy, Ren Zhongyuan really did not have the guts to do so. The only good news was that he'd managed to get away with it for the past 2 days, but the kid had sustained quite a bit of injuries as well. At the very least, they were on par in terms of suffering. Ren Zhongyuan could only comfort himself like that. The next day, when Lin Yi appeared on the arena again, Lung Rufin couldn't help but feel numb in his scalp again. This guy actually returned to his peak state again. Just like the previous 2 days, this time, Lin Yi was still beaten. Unfortunately, Lung Rufin still failed to kill Lin Yi within 30 minutes. Even if he had the intention to kill, it was useless. Lin Yi's speed seemed to be faster than that of the previous 2 days, and his strength in all aspects seemed to be stronger than before. On the other hand, after 2 consecutive days of consumption, Lung Rufin's state inevitably declined a little bit. On the second day, he was still 90%, but on the third day, he was not even 80%. What was more troublesome was that after Lin Yi was injured and left the arena, he was eager to have a try again and said the 4 words, "Continue tomorrow." No one thought that things would develop like this. If he hadn't met Lung Rufin wouldn't believe that he would be used as a sparring partner by a master at the middle stage of Yuanying realm. Yes, Lin Yi regarded him as a rare and excellent sparring partner. To be more precise, he should treat him as a monster to increase his level, because Lin Yi had a strong hunch these 2 days that he was about to break through. From then on, every day, the arena was crowded with people. The fight between the Grim Machete God and the Fuma of West Island was almost a reserved program here. For a time, the name of Lin Yi's undying cockroach spread to everyone. Everyone here knew that there was an undying Fuma in West Island, which made the Grim Machete God feel helpless. For 7 consecutive days, Lin Yi was defeated again and again, but the more he fought, the braver he became. Almost every day, his strength was rapidly improving at a level that was visible to the naked eye. On the contrary, Lung Rufin was more and more struggling. A few days ago, he could crush Lin unilaterally, but on the 7th day, when he knocked Lin Yi to the ground again, he himself began to be a little out of breath. Of course, the result was still that Lung Rufin had the upper hand, but he still couldn't kill Lin Yi. He could only speechlessly hear the 4 words again, "Continue tomorrow." He thought it was a trivial matter, but he didn't expect it to turn into a war of attrition that lasted for 7 days. The double physical and mental exhaustion made Lung Rufin feel that it was simply a nightmare. Of course, Lin Yi was not a strong enemy for him, but to some extent, Lin Yi did make him feel a little tricky. Especially on the 8th day, when he saw Lin Yi again in front of him, Lung Rufin was stunned on the spot. He felt that he should take back his previous evaluation. This guy was not only a little tricky, but also quite tricky. He was an out-and-out strong enemy. Because Lung Rufin suddenly found that Lin Yi, who was only at the middle stage of nascent soul yesterday, suddenly became at the peak of the middle stage of nascent soul today. This guy not only recovered his state, but also upgraded overnight. Even if he was a super genius with extraordinary talent, When he reached the nascent soul stage, any breakthrough was very difficult. Many people would even go into seclusion for decades just for a single breakthrough. However, this time, Lin Yi opened the eyes of Lung Rufin and the others. The day before, he was beaten like a dead dog. In the blink of an eye, the next day, he broke through and upgraded. All in all, it only took one night. It was simply unimaginable for ordinary people. Lung Rufin, who had always been cold, was gossiping for the first time today. "What medicine did you take?" "Medicine?" Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders and curled his lips. "It's tiring enough to fight with you every day. Where do I have the time to take medicine? Even if I take it, I won't have time to digest it. I'm afraid I'll get indigestion." Lung Rufin was speechless. After fighting with Lin Yi for 7 days, his current state was less than 50%. This was the result of taking a recovery pill in the middle of the fight. Otherwise, his state would be even worse. Chapter 48:02. For the first 7 days, Lung Rufin had been one-sidedly suppressing Lin Yi. But on the 8th day, facing Lin Yi, who was at the peak of the mid-nascent soul stage, he could no longer maintain this dominating and absolute dominance. Both sides actually fought back and forth. There were several times when Lin Yi almost succeeded, causing Lung Rufin to break out in a cold sweat. After the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, there was still no clear winner between the two sides. But what was different from before was that Lin Yi had been beaten to the ground for the past 7 days and barely managed to survive. But this time, he stood calmly until the end. Although he was wounded, judging from the previous process, it could barely be considered a draw. Monster. This kid was simply a monster. Looking at the back of Lin Yi's departing figure, Lung Rufin's heart was like a stormy sea. Lin Yi's progress these days was not as simple as just leveling up. The other people in the field were just bystanders. Only Lung Rufin, who was at the peak of the mid-nascent soul stage, was able to experience the most. Lung Rufin himself was a monster, but in his eyes, he was still miles away from Lin Yi. One must know that if he was at the peak of the mid-nascent soul stage, he wouldn't even be able to withstand a single move from Lin Yi, let alone fight back and forth. Thinking of this, Lung Rufin's heart had a bad premonition. If this continued, would he really fail miserably? With the pride of the cold-faced saber god, it was simply unthinkable for him to have such concerns. But after so many days, anyone in his position would be anxious. According to this strange trend, it was not impossible for him to fail miserably, but rather, it was very likely. On the 9th day, the two fought for the 9th time in a row. With the rapid improvement of his strength, and at the same time, he became more and more accustomed to Lung Rufin's powerful saber momentum. Lin Yi was able to gradually control part of the rhythm of the battle. This was a very gratifying change because only by controlling the rhythm would he have the chance to laugh at the end. However, on this day, Lin Yi was still beaten like a dog. Not only was it worse than the day before, but it was even worse than the first day. This was the closest he had to death. After a very difficult time, Lin Yi couldn't even get up and could only barely stabilize his body by leaning on Ning Xuefei's body. The reason was not that he underestimated his opponent, but because Lung Rufin suddenly recovered to his peak state, and his determination to kill him was far more determined than in the previous 7 days. Needless to say, this guy must have taken the elixir after seeing that the situation was not good, and it was the kind of elixir that could restore all the true qi overnight. In order to nip the hidden danger in the bud, Lung Rufin really spent a lot. Unfortunately, he still failed. If the same injury was placed on other people, they would have died 10 times, but Lin Yi stubbornly held on. This kid was really an undying cockroach, worthy of his reputation. Qinxue, don't worry, I will definitely get the beauty pill and the Thunder Xian pill. Lung Rufin assured Yang Qinxue, who was disappointed again and again. No matter how much Lin Yi improved, the gap between their strength was always there. As long as he was not consumed too badly, he always held the absolute initiative. However, Lung Rufin did not expect that this fight would go on for another 7 days. Lin Yi's strength was still growing rapidly, but he himself was once again consumed to the point where he could not go any further. And this time, he no longer had the 7th grade Qi recovery pill in his hands. After all, he was not like Ren Zhongyuan, who had the 7th grade alchemist father as his backing. This kind of expensive consumable, even Lung Rufen could not afford it. Not to mention the mental exhaustion, just the little bit of true Qi left in his body had already completely forced Lung Rufen into a dead end. 30% of true Qi was more than enough to deal with Lin Yi 10 days ago, but now, this little bit was not enough at all. However, for Yang Qinxue, even if he was forced, Lung Rufen had to try. If he tried, there was still a chance. If he did not try, there would be nothing. However, when he saw Lin Yi walk into the arena for the 15th time, especially when he noticed the unstable momentum of Lin Yi, he was suddenly dumbfounded. He opened his mouth for a long time, but could not say a word. He could only stare at Lin Yi in a daze. Not only him, but also the audience, with a little bit of insight, were shocked. Some of them came to support every day and were very familiar with Lin Yi, the Fuma of West Island. But it was precisely because of this that they were so shocked and dumbfounded. "You broke through again?" Lung Rufen finally bit his tongue and said this sentence. How long had it been since the last breakthrough? It seemed to be only about 7 days. Why did this guy's momentum suddenly soar again? Had he already reached the late stage of Yuanying realm? Thanks to you. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Although he could not fully control his momentum because he had just broken through, he was still very happy. This Lung Rufen was simply his lucky star. After fighting with him for half a month, he suddenly rose 2 levels from the middle stage of Yuanying realm to the late stage of Yuanying realm. Although it was not as exaggerated as rising 2 levels in a row, in the eyes of everyone, it was no different from rising 2 levels in a row. Hearing this light answer, Lung Rufen, who rarely scolded people, could not help but curse. It was not because he hated Lin Yi to the bone, but purely because he really did not know how to vent his emotions. Let's start. Lung Rufen suppressed the shock in his heart. This time, he did not dare to let Lin Yi attack first. As soon as he finished speaking, he directly performed Ice and Snow World and attacked Lin Yi with a knife. Lin Yi did not give an inch. With a low dragon roar, he faced the strongest 5 elements' murderous intent. This time, he did not intend to use any tactics. He just wanted to have a good head-on confrontation with the opponent and see how much he could weigh. After experiencing the tempering of actual combat for the past half a month, especially after his strength had risen by 2 levels, Lin Yi's 5 elements' murderous intent had now faintly showed signs of turning into a dragon. Although it was only a vague sign for the time being, this was definitely a very gratifying change. One day, when it truly turned into a dragon, it would be the real and complete version of the 5 elements' murderous intent. It was a pity that the power of thunder and lightning, which also came from the inheritance of the sea-splitting stage, had not improved during this time. It was not that there was no progress at all, but this progress was really negligible compared to the 5 elements' murderous intent. Except for the little numbing effect, it was almost useless against an opponent like Lung Rufen. Chapter 48:03. The audience was in an uproar, and Lung Rufen's face finally showed surprise for the first time. Looking at Lin Yi, who was surging with fighting spirit, he could not help but gasp. It had only been half a month, and this kid had become so strong. Again, Lin Yi was excited and eager to try. For half a month, this was the first time he had a head-on draw with his opponent, although he knew that this didn't mean that they were evenly matched in strength. After all, the other party's condition had been exhausted previously. If he was at his peak condition, he would definitely be suppressed. Even so, this was still a huge and gratifying improvement. Anyone would find it hard to accept being forced into a draw by an opponent they had been suppressing, let alone someone as proud as Lung Rufen. Everyone knew that this guy was going to go all out. Lin Yi was waiting impatiently, but Lung Rufen's words stunned him. The audience was in an uproar. "No, I admit defeat." "What?" Lin Yi looked at him in surprise. wondering if this guy was joking. No matter how he looked at it, he did not look like a person who would voluntarily admit defeat. And at most, it was a draw just now. If they continued to fight, it was still unknown who would win and who would lose. Lung Rufin did not speak. He turned his head and looked at the noisy audience. Finally, his eyes fell on Yang Qianxue beside the ring, and he shook his head with an apologetic expression. It was not that he did not want to fight. In fact, he did not think that he would lose to Lin Yi at all. At least he could fight until both of them were injured. But what about after that? Unlike Lin Yi, who had just arrived, he could be said to have enemies everywhere. There were countless enemies with backgrounds and strength, like Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian. After all, the title of Grim Machete God did not come out of nowhere. Every victory meant one more enemy. When he lost the power to protect himself, any one of them could easily kill him. Lung Rufin was arrogant, but he wasn't stupid. He knew when to advance and when to retreat. Otherwise, no matter how strong he was, he wouldn't be able to stand out in this place. After carefully looking at Lung Rufin's expression, Lin Yi was finally sure that Lung Rufin wasn't joking. He thought for a moment and said, "All right then, there's no problem with the bet we agreed on, right?" Lung Rufin looked at him deeply. Although he was a little unwilling, he still nodded in agreement. Of course, he didn't have the mood to be a bodyguard, but since he had agreed in advance, he couldn't go back on his word now, right? Very good. Lin Yi immediately laughed. Seeing the other party's serious expression, he added, "Don't worry. Although you became my Fei-Fei's bodyguard because you lost, I won't mistreat you. You'll be rewarded." Payment? Lung Rufin was startled. Although it was not too obvious, there was still a trace of disdain between his brows. At his level, this small amount of spiritual jade was not worth his attention at all, unless the other party could offer a sky-high price of hundreds of thousands. "I'll give you the beauty pill, and then I'll give you an extra Thunder Xian pill. That's okay, right? There's no other request. In the future, protect Fei-Fei for me in the academy. Don't let Ren Zhongyuan and these idiots harass her." "Lin," he said lightly. As soon as these words came out, the whole audience was in an uproar again. The 7th grade beauty pill and the 7th grade Thunder Xian pill. Isn't this a big deal too scary? As expected of the prince consort of West Island, it's really rich and overbearing. Lung Rufin looked at Lin Yi and was speechless. After a long time, he squeezed out a sentence. "If you had said so earlier, I wouldn't have fought." He'd put in so much effort to fight Lin Yi for half a month, all for the beauty pill and the lightning mystic pill. He wouldn't have put in so much effort if he'd known that he'd be able to get them, even if he surrendered. If we don't have a few good fights, how can I know if you're worth this price?" Lin Yi said with a smile. In fact, he was addicted to the sweet fight. He had only fought with Lung Rufin for half a month and had risen 2 levels. In the future, he would often fight with him. Maybe he could rise a few more levels. Of course, this is just Lin Yi's own fantasy. The reason why he was able to upgrade quickly this time was actually largely due to the serious injuries he had suffered in the last trial in West Island. After coming back from the Gate of Hell, he felt like he had been reborn. In addition, he had received the powerful inheritance of the giant electric eel. Although the power of thunder and lightning was not of much use for the time being, it was enough to refine his body. Moreover, in the past half a month, he had been injured every day. In addition to healing himself, Lin Yi had taken no less than 6 gathering nascent soul golden pills to replenish his vitality. With such a huge amount of medicinal power accumulated together, it was natural for him to break through and upgrade. After all, he was a perfect nascent soul. "I'm exhausted. You're such a bad guy." Lung Rufin shook his head speechlessly and smiled with some difficulty. Now he was really physically and mentally exhausted by Lin Yi. If there weren't so many people watching, this cold-faced god of machete would have sat down on the ground without caring about his image. Fortunately, the hard work of this half a month was not in vain. He got the beauty pill and the Thunder Xian pill at the same time. Now Yang Qianxue's appearance and strength were very likely to be restored to their original state. Congratulations! The 2 people on the stage were all happy, But Ren Zhongyuan, who had just been named by Lin Yi, was really angry. Seeing Lung Rufin, whom he had high hopes for, and Lin Yi shake hands and make peace in public, he was completely dumbfounded. What the hell was going on? He clearly spent a huge price of a beauty pill and racked his brains to provoke a powerful chess piece to deal with Lin Yi. After spending a whole half a month, not only did he not kill Lin Yi, but he also became his bodyguard. The world was too unpredictable. Under the stimulation, Ren Zhongyuan felt that his heart was about to explode. After subconsciously circulating his true qi, he felt a terrible pain in his internal organs. His vision turned black, and he fell to the ground on the spot, which really shocked Yi Xiaotian and the others. Under the astonished gazes of the onlookers, they could only drag Ren Zhongyuan away like a dead dog. When Ren Zhongyuan finally caught his breath and woke up, they were already in the private room of the restaurant. Yi Xiaotian and the others did not dare to send him home. Otherwise, if Ren Tiansuo asked them, how would they answer? Brother Ren, you're finally awake. Yi Xiaotian and the others suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. If something really happened to Ren Zhongyuan, they would have to bear the consequences. Chapter 4804. Fortunately, after waiting for a long time, Ren Zhongyuan finally got up and said faintly, Lin Yi must die. No matter what you think of, you must help me kill Lin Yi, by hook or by crook, regardless of the cost. They looked at each other, and no one spoke. In the end, it was Yi Xiaotian who spoke. Brother Ren, I can understand your feelings, but with our strength, we can't even deal with one Lin Yi, let alone now that there's another one with the surname Lung. I'm afraid there's no good way. They were already helpless to deal with Lin Yi, and they were also helpless to deal with Lung Rufin. Now that these two guys joined hands, how could they deal with them? Everyone looked at each other speechlessly. Compared with Lin Yi, they were actually more afraid of Lung Rufin. After all, this guy's strength was too strong. He was almost invincible among the students of the academy, and everyone was afraid of him. The reputation of the cold machete god was gained by slashing with his saber. Except for Lin Yi, who didn't know anything, there was no one in Soaring Cloud Academy who could match him. Ordinary people would be scared and kneel on the spot when they heard his name. Otherwise, when they wanted to kill people with a borrowed knife, they would not have thought of this guy at once. Ren Zhongyuan frowned and pondered for a long time. After a moment, he suddenly said, what if we wait until Lung Rufin leaves? After he leaves? Yi Xiaotian was stunned, and suddenly clapped his hands and said, yes, Lin Yi is really clever. He wants a win over Lung Rufin with the beauty pill and the Thunder Xian pill, but in fact he is simply trapped in a cocoon of his own making. Originally, Lung Rufin will stay in the academy to be their bodyguard, but once young Qinxue recovers her appearance and strength, yes, Brother Ren and Brother Yi are really smart. At that time, Lung Rufin will definitely return to the Xuanjia Sea area. Li Yuzhou quickly flattered. Sun Baolu added, yes, the Mystic Step Sea is an unparalleled temptation for experts like them. A genius like Lung Rufin, who thinks he's extraordinary, will definitely not be willing to stay and be a bodyguard. He will definitely do everything he can to return to the Mystic Step Sea. That's right. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. As long as we endure this period of time, it won't be too late to make a move on Lin Yi. Ren Zhongyuan's eyes flickered with resentment. If it was possible, he certainly didn't want to endure it. However, there was no other way. Reality forced him to endure it unless his father, Ren Tiansuo, was willing to help. Unfortunately, the possibility of this was very small. If it dragged on for too long, he might not be able to wait, but if it was only 2 or 3 months, then it wouldn't be a problem. Brother Ren, Brother Yi, this plan is good, but there's a loophole. What if Lin Yi can't wait for 2 months and leaves? Li Yuzhou asked cautiously. Idiot, isn't it simple? The monk can run away, but the temple can't. As long as Ning Shuefei is still here, even if Lin Yi leaves, it doesn't matter. We can play a little trick and let Ning Shuefei make an accident and seriously injure her. Are we afraid that he won't come? Ren Zhongyuan sneered. They looked at each other and laughed. Although the title of West Island's Fuma was coveted, it was also a burden sometimes. As long as they controlled Ning Shuefei, it was equivalent to controlling Lin Yi. Is there any risk in this? Li Yuzhou cautiously reminded them. Ning Shuefei, a little girl who didn't know much about worldly affairs, would naturally be controlled by others. The key was that she was the princess of West Island. Once an accident happened, the entire Soaring Cloud Academy would be shocked. At that time, in order to give a satisfactory explanation to West Island, they would definitely investigate this matter to the end. Even if Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian worked together, they might not be able to stop them. Stupid. I said it was an accident. What's the risk? Anyway, I just seriously injured her, not killed her. Ren Zhongyuan curled his lips disdainfully. As long as it was not irreparable, even if West Island knew it, they wouldn't hold on to it. After all, Soaring Cloud Academy was not weak. His father and Yi Xiaotian's father could support them. That's right. As long as we control it well, it won't be a big problem. Yi Xiaotian nodded and said. When they were secretly discussing in the private room, they didn't know that the target of their discussion was having a dinner in the private room downstairs. Of course, with the high-end design of this restaurant, the soundproofing effect couldn't be so bad. Normally, no matter how good one's hearing was, it was impossible to hear the conversation in the private room upstairs. Moreover, the wall here had the effect of blocking the divine sense. The restaurant had spent a lot of money on this, and the purpose was to ensure the privacy of the guests. Only in this way could they attract high-class guests. At this time, there were a total of 5 people dining together: Lin Yi, Ning Shuefei, Leng Rufeng, and Yang Qinxue. In addition, Chun Xingma was also dragged here. Needless to say, Lin Yi and the other 3 people, even with Chun Xingma's strength, under normal circumstances, she couldn't hear the sound upstairs unless she used some kind of divine sense method. With her self-restraint, she wouldn't do such a thing inexplicably. However, although Lin Yi and the others couldn't hear it, it didn't mean that no one could see through the conspiracy of Ren Zhongyuan and the others. At least the ghost thing knew it clearly. Naturally, the conspiracy of these people fell into Lin Yi's ears without missing a word. After listening to these words, Lin Yi's face changed involuntarily. He really didn't expect that Ren Zhongyuan would hate him so much. In order to deal with him, he even had this kind of insidious idea. Fortunately, it was heard by the ghost thing. Otherwise, it was possible that the other party would succeed. What's wrong? Next to him, Ning Shuefei was eating happily. The table full of East Continent specialties was very appetizing, but she still noticed Lin Yi's strange expression immediately. Chun Xingma, Leng Rufeng, and the others also heard her words and looked over. Oh, it's nothing. Lin Yi smiled calmly. With a wave of his hand, he took out a delicate wooden box, pushed it in front of Leng Rufeng and Yang Qinxue, and said, "This is the beauty pill. As for the Thunder Xin pill, I still have to refine it on the spot, so you'll have to wait for another 2 days." Leng Rufeng was immediately overjoyed, while Yang Qinxue's eyes lit up as if she had seen a life-saving straw. However, she didn't immediately reach out to take it. Instead, she looked at Lin Yi and Ning Shuefei with some embarrassment. After this period of recuperation, coupled with the fact that she always wore a veil, her mental state was much better than before. At least, she was not as blind and impulsive as before. Now that she thought about it, she was quite embarrassed that she had crazily snatched the beauty pill. In the end, all this happened because of her. Fortunately, the result was still satisfactory. Chapter 48:05. You don't have to thank me. This is what we agreed to do. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Putting away the beauty pill, Leng Rufeng and Yang Qinxue both nodded gratefully. Until then, Leng Rufeng suddenly reacted and said in shock, "You just said that you can refine Thunder Xian pills? Are you a 7th-level alchemist?" Not only Leng Rufeng was shocked, but also Chun Xingma next to him. She only knew that Lin Yi was the son-in-law of West Island and a disciple of the 3 pavilions of North Island, but she never knew that he was a 7th-level alchemist. My God, how old is he? Kind of. Lin Yi and Ning Shuifei looked at each other and smiled. Strictly speaking, the alchemy was done by the magic pesticide cauldron, and he himself was just an assistant to inject true qi into the cauldron. He was not a real 7th-level alchemist, but he could really refine Thunder Xian pills easily, and his efficiency was much higher than that of ordinary 7th-level alchemists. Everyone in the box gasped at the same time, including Chun Xingmo. They all looked at Lin Yi as if he was a monster. The battle in the past half-month had proved that this guy was a monster, but they really didn't expect that this was just the tip of the iceberg. Lung Rufin looked at Lin Yi in a daze and didn't know what to say for a while. He could only drink a glass of wine to calm himself down. To be honest, he was still a little unwilling to admit that he had lost to Lin Yi. If it were anyone else in his position, it would be impossible for him to be completely convinced. It was only because of the previous bet and Lin Yi's promise to give him the beauty pill and Thunder Xian pill that Lung Rufin was willing to work for him as a bodyguard. But now, he really wanted to worship Lin Yi. He couldn't find another 7th-level alchemist at such a young age in the world. Brother Lung, I want to ask, when Miss Yang recovers, will you continue to stay in Shangyun Academy? Lin Yi suddenly asked. After listening to the conspiracy of Run Zhongyuan and others, this was the most important thing for him to figure out at the moment. Lin Yi quietly waited for the other party's answer. After a long time, Lung Rufin said, 3 months. I will only stay here for 3 months. Only 3 months? Lin Yi immediately frowned. This was exactly what Ren Zhongyuan and the others had expected. That's right. If you don't think it's suitable, you don't have to give me the Thunder Xian pill, and I'll buy the beauty pill at the market price. At the same time, I can be your bodyguard for 3 months. After that, I won't be able to accompany you anymore. I have to get revenge for what happened in the Mystic Step Sea. No one can stop me. Lung Rufin's face was a bit apologetic, but he was very determined. Lin Yi took a deep look at him, raised his glass, and didn't continue to insist. Just now, he deliberately let Lung Rufin know that he was a 7th-grade alchemist. To put it bluntly, he wanted to improve his status and make Lung Rufin want to make friends with him. In this way, he wouldn't have to worry about Ning Shuifei having no one to protect her. But looking at Lung Rufin's expression, Lin Yi knew that the Mystic Step Sea had probably become his obsession. If it weren't for Yang Qinxue, he wouldn't have the patience to continue to stay here. No matter how much Lin Yi persuaded him, it would be useless. At the end of the day, Lung Rufin only agreed to this condition because he lost the duel. The two were enemies before, and their relationship was far from that of friends. Since Lung Rufin wanted to leave, Lin Yi couldn't stop him. What should he do? Lin Yi suddenly had a headache. Since he couldn't make Lung Rufin stay, he had to continue to stay in the East Continent. After all, Ning Shuifei's safety was the first priority. But he couldn't stay here all the time. He had upgraded 2 levels in half a month. Now, simple meditation and cultivation could no longer meet the needs. Whether it was to consolidate his strength as soon as possible, or to continue to seek the opportunity to break through to the next level, he had to go outside. It was not his style to stay in one place for a long time for closed-door cultivation. But although it was a headache, He didn't make things difficult for Lung Rufin. 3 months was 3 months, and he had to think of other ways to deal with the things after that. Thank you. Lung Rufin was both grateful and apologetic. Speaking of which, he was a little immoral in this matter, but he wouldn't change his mind. 3 months later, he had to go to the Mystic Sea region to settle things. Linny smiled and didn't say anything. After sending Lung Rufin and Yang Qinxue off, and agreeing to meet up with Yang Qinxue after she took the beauty pill, Ning Shuifei and Chun Xingma returned to the newcomer's courtyard. Only then did Lin Yi tell them everything. What? They're actually so bold? Chun Xingma was instantly shocked. Ning Shuifei wasn't too worried, but the three of them discussed it. In the end, they still went to Chun Jiao Academy and called Lu Ziyu and Hui Yudi over. Just half a day later, Lu Ziyu and Hui Yudi hurried over. This matter concerned Ning Shuifei's future safety, and they couldn't afford to be careless. The five of them sat in a circle around the table, all of them frowning. Even Lu Ziyu and Chun Xingma couldn't think of an effective way to deal with it. If they did something, it would be easy. As long as we have evidence, we can ask the Academy to step in at any time. At the very least, we can put them under house arrest. But now we have no proof. Sigh. Chun Xingma sighed. Although she was the Academy's vice dean, because of her personality, she wasn't a powerful person in the Academy's upper echelon. In terms of status and authority, she was far inferior to Ren Tianxia. If she wanted to rely on a few words to warn Ren Zhongyuan and the others, it was almost impossible to have any effect. On the other hand, Lu Ziyu was a powerful person, but unfortunately, she was in Chunjiao Academy and had no reason to interfere with Soaring Cloud Academy's matters. Her authority in this matter was even lower than Chun Xingma's. Seeing that everyone was frowning, Ning Shuifei said, "Actually, it's not that serious. As long as I stay with Master, they won't be able to do anything to me. Those people can't be so daring as to play tricks in front of Master, right?" "That's true, but Fei Fei, you can't be with Shima all the time, right? You could be a thief for 1,000 days, but you can't guard against thieves for 1,000 days. As time goes on, someone will definitely catch you and take advantage of you." Lu Ziyu smiled bitterly and shook her head. "Then why don't I move over to accompany Fei Fei?" Hui Yudi blinked and suggested. Everyone's eyes instantly lit up. Lu Ziyu couldn't just move over to protect Ning Shuifei, but Hui Yudi could. As long as Chun Xingma went to apply for a spot as an exchange disciple, she could stay here permanently. The two of them could be companions, and Hui Yudi's strength wasn't weak, so she could protect Ning Shuifei at her side. Chapter 4806. Hui Yudi's strength wasn't weak, but Ren Zhongyuan and the others weren't easy to deal with either. If they really wanted to cause trouble, it was very likely that even Hui Yudi would be wiped out. Therefore, this could only be their last resort. If they wanted to truly protect Ning Shuifei, they had to find a bodyguard as intimidating as Lung Rufin. Unfortunately, in the entire Soaring Cloud Academy, there was only one Lung Rufin. Otherwise, if it was really so easy to find a few, Lung Rufin wouldn't be as terrifying as he was now. In the end, the crisis meeting couldn't come to a conclusion. But since she was already here, Hui Yudi couldn't bear to go back just like that, so she specifically stayed for a few more days. It was fine with Ning Shuifei, but she and Lin Yi didn't have many opportunities to see each other. After 3 days, Hui Yudi reluctantly left. If it wasn't for the fact that the Morning Pride Academy was about to have a disciple assessment, she wanted to stay until Lin Yi left. Unfortunately, things didn't go as she wished. After sending off Lu Ziyu and Hui Yudi, other than Chun Xingma who came from time to time, the entire newcomer courtyard was only left with Lin Yi and Ning Shuifei. This was exactly what Ning Shuifei wanted. It was another rare time for the two of them. But before the two of them could start to flirt, a person suddenly came in. It was Lung Rufin. It wasn't known whether this guy was born like this or trained to be like this. From the first time Lin Yi saw him, he always had the same cold expression. It was very rare to see his face change, but this time, this guy actually had an indescribable worried expression. "What's wrong, Brother Lung?" Lin Yi's heart moved. For Lung Rufin to be so worried, it was most likely that something happened to Yang Qianxue. Lung Rufin looked at Lin Yi and sighed. Qianxue took the beauty pill, but it only had half of the effect. Only half of the effect? Lin Yi was stunned. The beauty pill was a 7th-rank medicinal pill. Normally, it should be easy to restore one's appearance. Could it be that there was a problem with the pill? It didn't seem like it. Back then, when he had obtained the beauty pill, he had personally checked it. The burns on Qianxue's face have healed, but the wounds that were invaded by the venom still haven't healed. It's all because of those damn bastards. Damn it! Lung Rufin's eyes spat out fire as he spoke. He heavily slammed his fist on the heavy stone table. His fist, which was not wrapped in any force, was immediately stained with blood. Venom? Lin Yi recalled what he had seen at that time. Although he had only taken a quick glance, The condition on Yang Qianxue's face was indeed shocking. It was much more serious than all the cases he had seen before. In particular, the wounds that had been soaked by the venom did not heal for a long time. It could be said that the venom had penetrated deep into the bone marrow. The beauty pill alone might not be effective. Lung Rufin immediately stopped talking. He sullenly sat on the ground in the yard, officially acting as Ning Xuefei's bodyguard. The beauty pill's failure to completely restore Yang Qianxue's appearance was his own fault. This cannot be blamed on Lin Yi. Therefore, even though his heart was in a mess, he still had to fulfill the agreement. Seeing this, Lin Yi did not say anything. After saying goodbye to Ning Xuefei, he returned to the house. He had promised to give Lung Rufin a Thunder Profound pill. These 3 days, because he had been with Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei, he did not have time to spare. Now that Lung Rufin was guarding him, he did not have to worry about Ning Xuefei's safety, so he could refine the pill in peace. One day later, when Lin Yi walked out of the door, he already had 8 more Thunder Profound pills on him. He did not use all the Thunder Profound Vine at once. This time, he only used about a quarter of it. Anyway, the Thunder Profound Vine was placed in the space of a jade pendant, and he often used the power of thunder to nourish it, so he did not have to worry about it withering. If there was no accident, these 8 Thunder Profound pills were already enough. After all, the Thunder Profound pill could only be used when attacking the Profound Ascension stage and dealing with the Thunder Tribulation. It was not like the Gathering Nascent Soul Golden pill, which could also be used as a supplement. Unless it was used as a gift, there was no need for so many. The remaining Thunder Profound Vine could be used for other purposes. In addition to the Thunder Profound pill, as far as Lin Yi knew, it was also an important material for several other 7th grade or even higher grade pills. Good steel should be used on the edge of the blade, so it would be of greater use when the time came. Brother Lung, this Thunder Profound pill can be given to you. Even if Miss Yang's appearance cannot be restored for a while, the matter of her strength realm cannot be delayed. Otherwise, when her realm completely falls, it will really be impossible for her to return to the Profound Ascension stage. Lin Yi advised. Thank you. Lung Rufin took the Thunder Profound pill with a complicated expression and shook his head with a bitter smile. I also advise her like this, but her appearance has become a problem for her. If this problem is not removed and she rashly breaks through, I'm afraid it will become a demon in her heart. It will really be unimaginable. It was innate for women to love beauty. No woman would really not take their appearance seriously, especially a beauty like Yang Qianxue, who was disfigured to this extent. No one could bear such a big gap. It was already very rare for her to be able to hold on until now without a mental breakdown. During this time, you should spend more time with her. When Feifei has me here, there should be no problem. Lin Yi sighed. Lung Rufin nodded gratefully and immediately took the Thunder Profound pill to find Yang Qianxue. To be honest, he was really worried about Yang Qianxue's mental state. Before, he could pin all his hopes on the beauty pill, but now that the beauty pill was useless, it was hard to guarantee that she would not do something stupid after her hope was shattered. At times like this, what Yang Qianxue needed the most was Lung Rufin's company. In the following month, Lung Rufin did exactly that. In the face of Yang Qianxue's shocking disfigurement, he really didn't leave her. Every day, he racked his brains to comfort Yang Qianxue, constantly comforting her. He would definitely find a solution. In the next month, in addition to accompanying Yang Qianxue and Ning Xuefei, Lung Rufin spent the rest of the time asking people for ideas. Even Lin Yi couldn't help but be moved. This cold knife god was really a person with a cold face, but a warm heart. On this day, while Lung Rufin was stationed in the newcomer's courtyard, he was writing letters to people. Needless to say, he was trying to find ways to ask people for help. Usually, asking for help was simply a whimsical thing, but for Yang Qianxue, he had thrown all his pride and self-esteem aside, just to find a glimmer of hope for his beloved woman. Brother Lung, do you have time? I want to talk to you about something. Lin Yi suddenly said. What is it? Lung Rufin was still writing rapidly and asked without raising his head. Chapter 4807. Chinchua. Lung Rufin froze and dropped the pen. He looked up at Lin nervously. Lin was speechless. Love was the most mysterious thing in the world, after all. What had happened to the cold-faced knife god? This scene was like a primary school student caught cheating on a test. Not bad. I've seen it for a month. Brother Lung, you're really infatuated with love. You can't go on like this. I can't bear it. So I'm going to make an exception and help Miss Yang recover her face. Lin looked at Lung Rufin. Lung Rufin was shocked. He looked at Lin from head to toe and said in disbelief, "You're not trying to stall for time, are you? Are you trying to find an excuse to look for herbs and make me protect Miss Ning? I don't even need to think to know what Renjong Yuan and the others are thinking. But I've said it before, I'm going to the Mystic Sea in 2 months no matter what." "So you know that too?" Lin couldn't help but be surprised. Lung Rufin and Renjong Yuan had been enemies for many years. He knew them better than he did. He nodded immediately. "You're half right. I do want you to stay, but I want you to protect Fei Fei for me sincerely. I'm not trying to stall you." Lung Rufin was silent for a moment. His face was still full of doubt. Lin was indeed a person that made him look at him in a different light. Whether it was his amazing strength or his identity as a 7th-level alchemist, he was far from being a normal person. Even he couldn't compare to Lin. But it was ridiculous to say that Lin could help Chinchua recover her face. Even a beauty pill didn't work. What other way could he do? After asking around for a whole month, Lung Rufin felt that the only reliable way was to find a medical saint like Zhang Liju. Other than that, he didn't believe in anything else. "How can I trust you?" Lung Rufin asked with a tiny bit of hope. "I'll tell you a secret, but don't tell anyone else. It might bring me trouble," Lin said seriously. "Tell me, I'm not a talkative person." Lung Rufin's heart was filled with hope after seeing Lin Yi's serious face. Lin smiled and said after a while, "All right, I'm actually Zhang Liju's last disciple." "What?" Lung Rufin's face paled as he almost cried out in shock. He looked at Lin from head to toe as he digested the shocking news. This guy was the disciple of Miracle Dr. Dan, Zhang Liju. This was something many people would do, especially Zhang Liju, who was one of the strongest in the 5 Sky class islands. Liju. There were many people who used his name, but under normal circumstances, no one would believe him. But after Lung Rufin, and Lin Rufin, it wasn't that he believed in Lin Yi's character. It was because all the signs from before were the best evidence. Putting aside Lin Yi's strength, this guy had been beaten up like a dead dog every day when they fought, and yet he was able to recover to his peak condition the next day. How was it possible that he didn't know anything about medicine? Plus, Lin was a level 7 elixir refiner. Without a master like Zhang Liju, who could teach such a young level 7 elixir refiner? All of this proved that Lin was indeed Zhang Liju's last disciple. There was no exaggeration in this statement. You can really cure Chinchua? Lung Rufin was excited. He thought that Zhang Liju was the only one who could cure young Chinchua, but it wasn't easy to meet someone like Zhang Liju. He might not get the chance even if he searched for 10 or 20 years. Now, he suddenly found Zhang Liju's last disciple. It was like a gift to him. "Yes, I've thought about it. Although it's hard, and I need to pay a big price, the chance of success is not small." Lin nodded. The reason why he purposely used Zhang Liju's name was to find a convincing excuse for his all-purpose pure energy. After all, Lung Rufin wasn't really on his side yet. What if the news got out after he cured young Chinchua? In this world, only by using the name of a tiger could he quickly gain the respect and trust of others. This was something Lin realized in the last West Island trial. As soon as he brought up the name of Shanghai Tianhua's personal disciple, people like Renjong Yuan would immediately look up to him. Now, from Lung Rufin's performance, it seemed that the title of Zhang Liju's last disciple was also very useful. Of course, Lin wasn't the kind of person to brag. He really was Zhang Liju's disciple. It was just that he hadn't met this cheap master yet, so he couldn't officially register. "If that's the case, I'll go get Chinchua. I'll leave everything to you, Brother Lin." Lung Ruofan was so excited that he used his strongest movement technique on the spot. He turned into an icicle and disappeared, leaving only a pile of ice shards on the ground. Lenny paused. When he fought with Lung Ruofan before, he didn't use this move. It seemed like he wasn't using his full strength. Of course, in front of his continuous energy consumption, Lung Ruofan couldn't maintain his peak condition at all. He had to make sure that every bit of chi was used on the blade to keep the stalemate going. As for this kind of movement technique that used up a lot of chi but couldn't decide the outcome of the battle, naturally it was best not to use it. After a while, Lung Ruofan excitedly brought Yang Qinxue over. These days, Yang Qinxue was a little dispirited, but her eyes were very bright when she looked at Lin Yi. Evidently, she already knew that Lin Yi was Zhang Liju's last disciple. She saw hope in the midst of despair. Fei Fei, you and Lung Bro stay outside. It shouldn't be too long, Lin Yi instructed and immediately brought Yang Qinxue into the room. After entering the room and sitting down, Lin Yi signaled for Yang Qinxue to take off her veil. Yang Qinxue struggled and hesitated, but under Lin Yi's encouraging gaze, she finally took off her veil with difficulty. In the past, she would lose control every time she took off her veil, but after so long, she could barely control her emotions. Chapter 48:08. Don't be nervous. Give me your hands. Lin Yi smiled. Oh. Yang Qinxue looked at him in confusion, but in the end, she still extended her hands. Unlike her ferocious and terrifying face, her hands could be said to be like ice and jade, full of fairy-like aura. Lin Yi also extended his hands to meet hers. The touch was cool but refreshing. She was indeed a rare beauty, but he didn't want to take advantage of her. If he wanted to treat her, he had to channel all-purpose true qi. This process couldn't be obstructed by clothes. There was no other way but to meet her palms. After all, he couldn't let Yang Qinxue take off her clothes in front of him. Through her palm, Yang Qinxue suddenly felt a warm stream of spiritual qi enter her body and rise to her face along her 8 extraordinary meridians. Her face suddenly felt a little itchy and a little numb. She couldn't help but want to scratch it, but she resisted the urge. After going on like this for about an hour, Yang Qinxue suddenly felt that something seemed to be flowing down her face. When she took a closer look, it was actually dark green venom. She was instantly shocked. Don't move. It'll be over soon. Lin Yi comforted her. Yang Qinxue was still a little panicked, but she didn't move after hearing this. She just watched as the horrifying venom flowed down her face bit by bit until it fell on the floor. The venom accumulated bit by bit. Yang Qinxue couldn't help but tremble. This was a nightmare she had every time she closed her eyes. It was the venom that almost broke her mind. She was muddle-headed all day, and sometimes she even wanted to die. Another hour passed, and finally, no more venom flowed down from her face. Yang Qinxue only felt that her face was getting more and more itchy. She suddenly had an epiphany, and she became excited. Could this be a sign that her wounds were healing? After a slightly long wait, Lin Yi finally withdrew his true qi from Yang Qinxue's body. He turned around and took out a mirror and handed it to her. Take a look for yourself. Yang Qinxue took the mirror with trepidation. She didn't dare to open her eyes. She had experienced it once a month ago. She didn't want to go through it again. The feeling of having one's last hope shattered could really make people break down. But in the end, she still opened her eyes with great difficulty. When she saw the face in the mirror that seemed to have been reborn, she immediately froze. How is it? Seeing Lin Yi walk out with a pale face, Lung Ruofan, who had been guarding the door like a headless fly for 4 hours, quickly went up to greet him. His usually expressionless face was now filled with anxiety and nervousness. See for yourself. Lin Yi waved his hand weakly. Actually, this was all an act for the other party to see. With the jade pendant to replenish his true qi at any time, he did not expend much energy at all. But since he was putting on a show, he had to go all the way. Even if he said that he was Zhang Liju's disciple, this wasn't something that could be done easily. He had to pretend that there was a price to pay. Seeing Lin Yi's expression that looked like he was about to faint at any time, Lung Rufin's expression suddenly changed. He thought that the treatment had failed, so he hurriedly shouted for Qianxue to rush into the room. However, before he could enter the room, Yang Qianxue had already walked out first. Qianxue! Lung Rufin was stunned. He stared blankly at Yang Qianxue's beautiful face, and his expression instantly turned into indescribable joy. Qianxue, you're okay. Seeing the cold blade god jumping around like a child, Lin Yi and Ning Shuifei couldn't help but smile at each other. Yang Qianxue, on the other hand, was moved to tears. She walked up and hugged Lung Rufin tightly. A hug was better than 1,000 words. This was the darkest period of Yang Qianxue's life. She had lost too much, and even wanted to end it countless times. But compared to what she had lost, what she had gained was actually more valuable. A friend in need is a friend indeed. She had found a man who was truly worthy of her life. Are you okay? Ning Shuifei's eyes were red from the scene in front of her, but she was still more worried about Lin Yi's condition. Lin Yi's pale face not only fooled Lung Rufin, but also her. I'm fine. Lin Yi smiled slightly. He gently hugged Ning Shuifei. To be honest, looking at Lung Rufin and Yang Qianxue was quite touching. He couldn't help but think of his group of female friends. Compared to Lung Rufin, who had always been by Yang Qianxue's side, he was far inferior in this aspect. At this time, Lung Rufin suddenly let go of Yang Qianxue, walked a few steps in front of Lin Yi, and directly knelt down in front of everyone's surprised eyes. This time, not only Lin Yi and Ning Shuifei, but even Yang Qianxue was shocked. Lung Rufin's pride was deeply rooted in his bones. Except for his master, no one in the world could make him kneel, no matter how strong or how high his status was. But today, he chose to kneel down in front of Lin Yi. Brother Lung, what are you doing? Lin Yi hurriedly reached out to help him up. He cured Yang Qianxue in order to let him stay to protect Ning Shuifei, not to make him kneel down in front of him. However, Lung Rufin pushed Lin Yi's hand away and said solemnly, I, Lung Rufin, have never admired anyone in my life, but I admire you. Brother Lin, although your realm is lower than mine, your strength is much stronger than mine. I have never seen a genius like you. I can't repay your kindness. From now on, you are my boss, and Miss Ning is my sister-in-law. Don't worry, before Miss Ning leaves Shangyun Academy, I will always stay here. Lung Rufin had never been a person who was good with words. His words could be said to be abrupt, but everyone present knew that his words were absolutely sincere. This guy was cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. Most of the time, he seemed to be unapproachable and difficult to get along with, but in fact, after getting along with him for a long time, people would know that he was a sincere person. The strong were respected. These 4 words were absolutely deeply rooted in people's hearts on the Heaven Stage Island. Even a man as arrogant as Lung Rufin regarded this as a golden rule. No matter from which aspect, Lin Yi would undoubtedly be a rare, super strong person in the world. At least he absolutely had the potential. As for the realm of strength, with his super strong potential, it was only a matter of time before Lin Yi reached the Xianxing realm or even the mountain opening realm. For a discerning person like Lung Rufin, this was not a problem at all. In addition, Lin Yi had shown his tolerance and character during this period of time, so Lung Rufin was really convinced. Chapter 4809. If Yang Qianxue, who was equally powerful, was included, it was simply a buy one, get one free. He suddenly had a pair of powerful husband and wife subordinates. This was really a rare surprise. Boss, since I've already recognized you as my boss, then there should be a difference in seniority. Don't call me Brother Lung, just call me by my name. Lung Rufin said seriously. Hee. Okay, then I will call you Rufeng. Lin Yi smiled. Although this guy's face was cold and his words were cold, he unexpectedly paid attention to the rules in this kind of thing. Lin Yi then asked, Rufeng, didn't you say that you must go to the Xuanjia Sea to settle things? Why did you suddenly change your mind? That's what I thought before, but at that time, I was just like Qin. I was driven by the desire for revenge and lost all rationality. But now I've thought it through. Instead of rushing to my death again, I might as well stay here and complete the task boss entrusted me with. I might as well find a way to improve my strength, Lung Rufin explained. At the same time, Lung Rufin and Yang Qinshua looked at each other and smiled. The reason why he could let go of this obsession was obviously because Yang Qinshua had recovered. He couldn't bring his beloved who had finally regained a new life to die. Well, now that Miss Yang's heart has been removed, the top priority is to return to the Xuanjie stage as soon as possible. And after that, you also need to cultivate for a period of time, including Ruffin. Lin Yi suggested. After fighting for half a month, he was very familiar with Lung Rufin. During that time, this guy's breathing was obviously unstable, which was also why Lin Yi continued to consume his energy. Otherwise, it would be a different result. In the following month, because of Yang Qinshua's matter, Lung Rufin didn't have time to recuperate and cultivate, so until now, he hadn't been able to fully recover. Fortunately, Yang Qinshuo had recovered and was now working as Ning Xuefei's bodyguard. He finally had time to recuperate and cultivate. Boss, don't worry, I know what to do. Lung Rufin nodded. Right, I wanted to ask this question for a long time. Is the profound step C really so dangerous? Lin Yi suddenly asked. Lung Rufin's strength didn't need to be mentioned. He could easily suppress Lin Yi even before he recovered. And if Yang Qinshuo recovered to the profound ascension stage, her strength would definitely not be weak. Such a powerful combination was actually beaten so miserably, it was really a bit frightening. Lung Rufin and Yang Qinshuo looked at each other and smiled bitterly. The atmosphere couldn't help but become slightly heavy when he recalled that encounter, and he went silent for a moment before he said slowly, Boss, don't be fooled by the various Yellow Order academies in the East Continent that are filled with both open and veiled strife and are filled with danger. But when compared to the profound rank oceanic domain, all of this pales in comparison. That's a place that truly devours people. Really? Lin Yi raised his brows slightly. After staying here for a month and a half, he could not help but feel that the East Continent Academy was just so. Except for Lung Rufin, none of the other disciples of Soaring Cloud Academy could catch his attention. However, after listening to Lung Rufin's words, Lin Yi suddenly changed his mind. It seemed that if there was a chance, he really had to go to the profound rank oceanic domain to have a good look. Lung Rufin surrendered to Lin Yi, and the grim machete god officially became the trump card of the West Islands Fuma. No one knew who spread the news, but spread like wildfire. Soon, it caused a sensation in the entire Soaring Cloud Academy. Although Lung Rufin suffered a big loss in the profound rank oceanic domain, he was still a leading figure among the disciples of Soaring Cloud Academy. Everyone knew that this guy was full of pride. Now, he was willing to become someone else's subordinate, and the opponent was a master of the nascent soul stage who was a whole realm lower than him. This was simply incredible. Others were just talking about it as a piece of news, but when Ren Zhongyuan heard about it, he directly blacked out and fell down on the spot. When he woke up, it was already 2 days later. His whole body was weak, and it turned out that he was seriously ill. The murderous spirit of the 5 elements in his body was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Even Ren Tiansuo had not been able to resolve it completely. During this period of time, he had been depressed, and he suddenly became angry, so he really deserved to be seriously ill. When Yi Xiaotian came to visit Ren Zhongyuan, he was shocked to see how weak Ren Zhongyuan was. Fortunately, Ren Tiansuo was there. Otherwise, given Ren Zhongyuan's current state, once his condition worsened, the consequences would be unpredictable. He thought that Ren Zhongyuan was just ill because of anger. He really didn't expect that a person who was originally a good person could be so angry that he was half dead. It turned out that there were really people in this world who could be angered to death. I'm not willing. Even though he was so weak, Ren Zhongyuan still couldn't forget Lin Yi. He had no strength to gnash his teeth, but the resentment in his eyes became more and more terrible. But even if he was not willing, what could he do? Now that Lung Rufin had completely turned to Lin Yi, with such a powerful underling guarding them, their previous plan had completely become a bubble. After all, since he was an underling, how could he leave his boss's woman behind? Not only was Lung Rufin's strength so strong that it made others feel helpless, more importantly, Lung Rufin knew them inside out. Even the slightest movement could not escape his eyes. Ren Zhongyuan and the others were helpless against him. So what could they do? What made Ren Zhongyuan even more helpless was that even though he was seriously ill, his father, Ren Tianzao, still had no intention of standing up for him. Instead, he ordered him to recuperate and even grounded him. This was what made Ren Zhongyuan the most depressed. Otherwise, if his father was willing to help, Lung Rufin would be nothing. In the face of this result, Yi Xiaodian was also very speechless. If he was seriously ill, the old man would have already taken a knife and risked his life. How could he be as calm as Ren Tianzao? He was worthy of being the second senior in the academy. To be able to become the chief alchemist, his shrewdness was really not something that ordinary people could estimate. The two looked at each other for a long time. Seeing that Ren Zhongyuan was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood, Yi Xiaodian suddenly said, "Actually, we have another way, but it depends on whether Brother Ren dares to do it or not." "Say it." Ren Zhongyuan glared and said, "I'm already so sick. What else do I not dare to do? As long as I can kill Lin Yi, I dare to do anything." My method can be described in 4 words: kill with a borrowed knife." Yi Xiaodian smiled coldly. Chapter 4810. Brother Run. The knife I'm talking about is not in our academy. As long as you look a little further, there are many knives that are faster and sharper than Lung Rufin. Yi Xiaodian pretended to be profound. "Oh, tell me more about it." Ren Zhongyuan suddenly became interested. When it came to this matter, even his spirit became better. He was not as sick as before. "Brother Run, have you forgotten that in addition to a group of Yellow Stage academies in our Yellow Stage C, there's also a hidden Yellow Stage branch of the West Mountain Evil Sect?" Yi Xiaodian reminded. "You mean?" Ren Zhongyuan's eyes lit up when he heard this. The West Mountain Evil Sect was an evil cultivation force that everyone hated. Generally, very few people knew that there was a Yellow Stage branch in the Yellow Stage C in the East Continent. He and Yi Xiaodian did not know, but during a trial, they met a few evil cultivation masters by chance. Not only did the two sides not fight, but they also temporarily cooperated to get what they needed, so they knew about this secret. As long as we spend a little bit of money, wouldn't it be easy to find an evil practitioner to kill Lenny? Moreover, I guarantee that no one will know, and no one will suspect us." Yi Xiaodian lowered his voice. "Yeah, now that you've reminded me, I heard that Lin Yi has a grudge with the West Mountain Elder of the West Mountain Evil Sect. It's a grudge between the two of them. It's reasonable for a heretic master to seek revenge on Lin Yi. It's like a knife that's delivered to their doorstep. Ha. Ren Zhongyuan's spirit was suddenly lifted, and he sat up from the bed. He was a typical person who was in good spirits, and his illness was mostly cured in an instant. After the two of them discussed the specific details, Ren Zhongyuan took 2 7th-grade pills from his father as a bargaining chip, and Yi Xiaodian personally went to find those evil cultivation masters to discuss cooperation. Because there were very few alchemists among evil cultivation masters, evil cultivation masters always lacked high-grade pills the most. Coupled with the conflict between Lin Yi and the West Mountain Old Sect, both sides could be said to hit it off. Just one day later, Yi Xiaodian rushed back to Soaring Cloud Academy. "How is it? Did they agree?" Ren Zhongyuan asked impatiently. "It's settled. A late-stage Profound Ascension expert, named Shishan Supreme Expert, is prepared to personally deal with Lin Yi. As long as this brat leaves our academy, he will immediately make a move." Yi Xiaodian chuckled. "Profound Ascension late-stage master?" Ren Zhongyuan was overjoyed. He thought that the other party would at most send an ordinary Profound Ascending Stage expert. He didn't expect it to be a Profound Ascending late-stage expert. To be able to invite such an expert with just 2 grade 7 dawn, it was really a huge profit. Speaking of which, it's also luck. This Shishan Almighty is looking for a way to get close to the Shishan Old Sect, so when he heard about Lin Yi's matter, he became excited. Otherwise, he really wouldn't have been able to invite him. Xiao Dian rejoiced. Good, good, good. With this West Mountain powerhouse personally taking action, Lin Yi is already a dead man. Ren Zhongyuan laughed and immediately climbed down from the bed. He didn't even care about his father's confinement order. He pulled Xiao Tian and said, Let's go for a drink. We have to celebrate this. Ren Zhongyuan was actively plotting again, but Lin Yi was completely unaware of it. Now that he had Lung Rufin and Yang Qianxue to protect him, and with the help of Chun Xingma and Lu Ziyu, Ning Xuefei's safety was no longer a concern. He could finally do some things he wanted to do. And Lin Yi's first plan was naturally to go to the Morning Star Academy. Although he didn't need to worry about Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao's situation, since it was rare for him to come to the East Continent, he naturally had to go and have a good gathering with them. Although they were both in the Yellow Tier C region, this was the East Continent. Just the Yellow Tier C region alone was already bigger than all of the South Continent's C regions combined. So the Morning Star Academy wasn't near here, but fortunately, it wasn't too far. After getting the map from Chun Xingma and studying it carefully, Lin Yi found that even if he didn't use flying spirit beasts, it would only take a few days to get to the Morning Star Academy. Of course, this was based on his own speed. If it was an ordinary nascent soul stage expert, they would have to walk for a month. After all, ordinary people wouldn't be so extravagant as to use martial arts to hurry on the road. Only fools would do so. After settling everything, he specially sent a message to Lu Ziyu and Hui Yudi. After everyone had a meal together, Lin Yi bid farewell to everyone and set off. In these 2 months in the Soaring Cloud Academy, Lin Yi had specially asked Hui Yudi to return to the Morning Pride Academy to investigate something that he was very concerned about. It was the girl from the secular world who had offended Yao Jieli, but was secretly released by Hui Yudi. What was the identity of this girl from the secular world? Was she one of his close female friends? Lin Yi had always been anxious to know the results. However, even though Hui Yudi had spent a lot of effort to investigate, and even Lu Ziyu had come forward to help, they still hadn't found any concrete results. Even the information on the secular world girl from the Morning Pride Academy was very little. Ever since she disappeared, it was as if she had evaporated from the face of the earth. All they knew was that the girl's alias was Little Nian. With regards to this result, Lin Yi felt very helpless. If he only knew that it was an alias, he had no way of confirming who the girl was. After all, coming to a completely unfamiliar place like this, anyone could use an alias. Although he felt helpless, Lin Yi couldn't continue wasting time on this matter. After all, the girl had already disappeared, and there was no point in continuing to stay. It would be better to go to the Morning Star Academy to see Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaodao. As for the matter of the secular world girl, he could only find out when he had the chance. Ning Xuefei and the others sent him to the academy gates. Just as Lin Yi was about to wave goodbye, a man suddenly walked towards Lin Yi. It seemed like he had been waiting at the gates for a long time. Stop! Without waiting for the man to get close to Lin, Lung Rufin suddenly blocked his way. He now considered himself to be Lin Yi's little brother, so naturally he wouldn't let anyone disturb Lin Yi. The man was instantly shocked. With Lung Rufin's strength, even if he didn't release his aura, that kind of pressure was not something an ordinary person could withstand. This guy took a few steps back and almost tripped over himself. He seemed to want to say something, but with a glance from Lung Rufin, he immediately shut up. Lin Yi glanced at him and didn't say anything, but he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. This guy Lung Rufin's deterrence was too ridiculous. He really hadn't taken this little brother for nothing. He was the most suitable bodyguard. Chapter 48:11. Lung Rufin frowned, but he didn't move away. He looked at him coldly and said, "What do you want?" Can I talk to Lenny face to face? I want to ask him for a small favor, Lung bro. The man stuck his head out and looked at Lenny. Just when Lung Ruofin was about to chase him away, Lin he suddenly said, "Forget it, Ruofin. Let him come." Thank you, thank you." The man quickly walked over and bowed to Lin. "Brother Lin, I am Jiang Hai. I heard that you were going to the Morning Star Academy, so I came to ask for a favor." "Oh, Brother Jiang, if you have something to say, just say it." Lin he looked at him in surprise. This man was only at the early nascent soul stage, but he knew that Lin he was going to the Morning Star Academy. He was quite well informed. Lin he didn't tell anyone about this. He only asked Chun Xingma to help him find a map. "It's like this. I have a fiancée named Qinyu. She is also in the Morning Star Academy. We haven't seen each other for 10 years, so I want to ask Brother Lin to bring her a medicinal pill as a token of my sincerity. I will be very grateful." Jiang Hahai sincerely asked, 10 years? Then why don't you go see her yourself? Although the Morning Star Academy is far away, it shouldn't be that hard to go there, right? Lin Yi and the others looked at each other. To be honest, it's not that I don't want to go, but I can't. Jiang Hahai shook his head and sighed. "Brother Lin, you don't know this, but the disciples of the Golden Step Academy are not allowed to go to other academies without permission. Those who can get the quota are either inner disciples or peak nascent soul cultivators. I'm not qualified at all. There's such a thing?" Lin he looked at Jiang Hahai and shook his head. In his opinion, Huiyuti easily came to the Soaring Cloud Academy. He didn't expect that there would be so many difficulties. Yeah, only someone with Big Brother Lin's status and strength can roam the Golden Sea region. As for me, Jiang Hahai smiled awkwardly and said with a gloomy expression, "My fiancée Qinyu and I were born into a poor family, and we don't have any connections in the academy. I think she should still be at the gold core stage like 10 years ago, so, all right, since you're so devoted to her, I'll help you." Lenny nodded. This man's persistence reminded him of himself. Didn't he come all the way here to find a way to wake Miss? And you shout her up? "Thank you, Big Brother Lin." Jiang Hahai was overjoyed. He quickly took out the elixirs he had prepared and handed them to Lin Yi. Nascent Soul Golden Core? Lin Yi recognized it at a glance, and couldn't help but look at Jiang Hahai in a higher light. This condensed nascent golden pill was a rare treasure for ordinary nascent soul experts, especially when he was only at the early nascent soul stage. He actually asked a complete stranger to help him carry the condensed nascent golden pill. His courage was not small. "Hee, aren't you afraid that I'll embezzle it?" Lin he said deliberately. Jiang Hahai couldn't meet Qinyu, so even if he embezzled the pill, no one would be able to prove it. "Big Brother Lin, you must be joking. You're the Prince Consort of the West Island, and you can casually take out a 7th grade elixir as a gift. This 6th grade condensed nascent golden pill is probably not enough for you, right? Besides, you're a trustworthy person, so I dare to ask for it." Jiang Hahai said seriously. "Hee, it seemed like you know a lot about me. You're very well informed." Lin he smiled slightly. "You flatter me. My strength is too low, so I can't be your and Miss Ning's bodyguard like Big Brother Lung. However, I've been in this academy for 10 years, and with this experience, I can be considered to have a wide network of people and eyes. I can't help much, but if Renjong Yuan and the others do anything strange, I can inform Big Brother Lung immediately." Jiang Hahai recommended himself. "All right, then I'll have to trouble you." Lenny nodded. With Jiang Hahai's information and Lung Ruofin's protection, Ningshu Fa would be a double layer of insurance. Nothing would go wrong, so he could be completely at ease. This is what I should do. Jiang Hahai looked delighted. Not only was he returning the favor, but he could also use this opportunity to build a relationship with a strong person like Lin Yi, which was also very beneficial for him. Then, he deliberately lowered his voice and said, "By the way, Yi Xiaotian sneakily went on a long trip a few days ago. I don't know what he went to, but the first thing he did when he returned was a party with Renjong Yuan to celebrate. I think there might be something fishy about this, so you should be careful, Big Brother Lin." Yi Xiaotian? "All right, thank you. Let's part ways here, and we'll meet again." With that, Lin Yi promptly bid farewell to everyone. Both Hui Yuti and Ning Shuifei were reluctant to part. Although they were mentally prepared for this, they still could not help but want to cry when it really came time to say goodbye. Lin Yi repeatedly promised that they would meet again soon, and only then did the two girls finally stop crying and smile, each giving him a hug before they were willing to let him go. Even after Lin Yi's figure disappeared beyond the academy gates, the two girls still refused to turn back for a long time. Lu Ziyu and Chun Xingma then tried their best to comfort them, and the two girls finally got rid of their husband-gazing stone state. From then on, Hui Yuti did not return to the Morning Pride Academy. Since the disciple assessment was over, she simply asked Chun Xingma to get her a spot as an exchange disciple so that she could stay behind to keep Ning Shuifei company. Ning Shuifei naturally could not ask for more. Although she also had Lung Rufin and Yang Qinxue by her side to protect her, Hui Yuti was her true sister after all. There were many private words that could only be said to Hui Yuti, and it was not suitable for outsiders to know. After coming out of the Soaring Cloud Academy, Lin Yi immediately activated the Super Butterfly Microstep and hurried on his way. He did not feel it before, but at this moment, when he thought that he would be able to see Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaodao very soon, his heart became even more impatient, and he did not want to delay even a moment. However, after only a little less than half a day, Lin Yi suddenly stopped his pace and changed his route to a small town nearby. He found an inn to stay in. Because it was not too far from the Soaring Cloud Academy and the Morning Pride Academy, this small town was marked on the map as being within the sphere of influence of the two academies and could be considered as a small town affiliated to the academies. Chapter 48:12. The town where Lin Yi was located was on the edge of Soaring Cloud City. It was a new area that had only been developed in recent years. Its scale was naturally incomparable to that of the main city. However, although it was small, it had everything. Not only did this place have everything, but it was also a well-known gray area. The supervision was far less strict than that of the main city. All kinds of people gathered in this place. The reason why Lin Yi suddenly changed his mind and came here was very simple. He found that someone was following him, and this person did not follow him for a short distance. He had been following him all the way from Soaring Cloud Academy. With the speed of Lin Yi's Super Butterfly Microsteps, the person who could follow him so easily must at least be a master of the mysterious ascending stage. In particular, Lin Yi's divine sense could only detect it, but could not lock on the other party. He had to be careful. At least, he could be sure that the guy following him was definitely not a good person. Lin Yi's guess was right. The person following him was indeed not an ordinary person. It was the powerful figure of Shishan that Renzhong Yuan and Yi Xiaotian had deliberately invited. After he found Lin Yi at the gate of the academy, he immediately followed him, but he did not choose to make a move. It was not that he did not want to, but he did not dare to. Unless he could ensure that there was no one around, he would not dare to make a move. After all, this was still within the sphere of influence of the academy. Evil cultivators like him were like street rats. Once they showed up, they would inevitably be attacked by others. Although he was a master of the mysterious ascending stage, it was a pity that he was really nothing in the East Continent. Any big shot of the academy could easily kill him. The powerful figure of Shishan originally planned to make a move after he left the sphere of influence of the academy. No one in the cultivation world would meddle in other people's business. It was the same in the East Continent. As long as he did not act wildly in the sphere of influence, even if they knew that he was an evil cultivator, the masters of the academy would only turn a blind eye to him. Sometimes, they would even cooperate with him, just like Renzhong Yuan and Yi Xiaotian, who knew that Lin Yi would suddenly change his route and enter a small town. The mighty figure of West Mountain could only disguise himself as an ordinary person and stay in the inn with them. Fortunately, this was not a strictly monitored main city, or else he might not have dared to follow them in. After all, there were all sorts of people in a small town. As long as he did not openly reveal his identity as an evil cultivator, it would not be a big problem. For the next 2 days, Lin Yi did not follow his original plan to rush to the Morning Star Academy, but instead strolled around the town. After strolling around for 2 whole days, he finally locked onto the stalker, who was staying in the same inn as him. It was a profound, ascended, late-stage expert. Lenny could not help but be secretly speechless. This guy was really not simple. He was obviously only separated by a layer of wood, but with his insight, it took him such a long time to find him. His concealment skills were really first class. But what puzzled him was, why would such a profound ascension late-stage expert follow him for no reason? From the looks of it, they didn't come with good intentions. Could it be that Yi Xiaotian invited them to deal with him? But it had been 2 whole days. Why was this guy still holding back and not making a move? Was he afraid that there would be too many people in this place? Just as Lin Yi was muttering to himself, the ghost's laughter suddenly sounded in his mind. Kid, why is it that the stronger you get, the more timid you become? What's there to make a fuss about? It's just a profound, ascended stage, trash, evil cultivator. Just trick him to a place where no one is around and kill him. Why are you so hesitant? This guy is an evil cultivator? No wonder he doesn't dare to make a move in public. Lin Yi was stunned when he heard this. Then he smiled bitterly and shook his head. Senior, you say it so easily. Even if he is an evil cultivator, he is still a profound, ascended late-stage expert. It's not certain who will kill who. If it was in the past, with Lin Yi's current nascent soul late-stage strength, he really might not put the profound, ascended late-stage in his eyes. After all, he was used to it. When he killed many profound ascended stage experts, he naturally didn't feel that it was a big deal. However, the appearance of Lung Rufin completely reversed his perception. After all, the profound ascended stage experts were not cabbages. With his current strength, even if he could kill an ordinary profound ascended stage expert in seconds, if he met a real strong person, the consequences would be unpredictable. One must know that just a profound ascended early stage expert like Lung Rufin could already suppress him. Once he really met a difficult profound ascended late stage expert, even Lin Yi could only be hunted down. Profound ascended late stage also depends on who it is. If it's Lung Rufin in the profound ascended late stage, I will definitely advise you to run away. But now this trash evil cultivator, that is, Lung Rufin, was in the state where you spent 5 days in a row. Don't tell me you can't even kill him like that? The ghost curled its lips. If that's the case, then that's great. I was just worried that there was no one to feed me. This guy came at the right time. Lin Yi was immediately happy when he heard this. Ever since he fought with Lung Rufin for half a month, he had already tasted the sweetness of fighting. When he had nothing to do, he wanted to find Lung Rufin to spar. This time, before he set off, he specially sparred several times. Unfortunately, Lung Rufin's state had recovered, but he obviously didn't dare to use his full strength. This guy attached great importance to his status. Facing his boss, Lin Yi, he didn't dare to fight at all. What if he couldn't control himself and seriously injured Lin Yi, or even directly killed him? Lin Yi tried a lot of ways to persuade him, but Lung Rufin just couldn't let go. Several times, he could only stop at a certain point, causing Lin Yi's interest to wane. But now it's good. A profound, ascended late-stage expert came to his door. This evil cultivator was not big nor small, just right to be his sparring partner. Lin Yi didn't act rashly after locking onto the Shishan master's position. He waited until midnight before leaving without a sound. If it was someone else, Lin Yi would have been able to avoid detection 99% of the time, but the Shishan master sensed it right away. In order to use Lin Yi's head to pave the road of advancement, the Shishan expert really put in a lot of effort this time. Almost all the time, he was paying attention to Lin Yi's position, waiting for the last opportunity to make a move, and now he finally waited for it. The Shishan expert suddenly revealed a sinister sneer and chased after him. Previously, he had been inexplicably circling around here for 2 days. Even a fool knew that he must have noticed that something was wrong, but this kid actually thought that he could slip away under his nose in the dark. He was simply too naive, locking onto Lin Yi's aura from afar. The Shishan expert was not in a hurry to make a move. Even if it was now night, to be safe, He had to wait until he was out of the school's sphere of influence. Haste makes waste, and he couldn't act rashly and ruin the big plan. Lin, he was still using the super butterfly micro-step to hurry on his way. This speed was already extremely fast, and with the cover of the night, he was like a ghost. Ordinary people couldn't even see him clearly, let alone follow him from afar. Chapter 48:13. In terms of movement techniques, evil cultivators who pursued the extreme by any means necessary were the real ghosts. Especially when Shishan was an evil cultivator who was good at movement techniques. Not to mention a nascent soul stage master, even a profound ascending stage master of the same level wouldn't be able to get rid of him easily. The two chased after each other for an entire night, and by the time the sun was up, Lin Yi was in the middle of an endless forest. There were no villages in front of him, no shops behind him, and he was far away from the school's territory. Shishan looked at the surrounding environment and sneered silently. He thought that this kid would sneak into the main city. If that was the case, he would really have to go through a lot of trouble. But now, this kid had found a good place to bury himself, which saved him a lot of trouble. There wasn't even a ghost in a 100-mile radius. No matter how big the commotion was, no one would come to get in the way. He really didn't know whether to say that this kid was stupid or to praise him for being tactful. Just as Shishan was about to make a move, Lin Yi suddenly stopped in front of him. This startled Shishan. He couldn't help but be a little suspicious. What did this kid want to do? This place is almost there. Although the feng shui isn't very good, it's more than enough to bury a follower. Come out. Lin Yi said lightly. The mighty figure of the West Mountain was stunned. He had been very careful along the way. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he had been hanging several kilometers away. He had also carefully concealed his aura. How could this kid have discovered him? Impossible. This brat is definitely bluffing. Try his luck to trick me out. Shishan originally planned to make a move, but now he changed his mind. With the mentality of a cat playing with a mouse, he wanted to see how long Lin Yi could play this one-man show. Hee, still hiding and not wanting to come out. Are you deceiving yourself? Lin Yi grinned, and then unreservedly revealed the strength of the late nascent soul stage. He said lightly, hurry up and come out and fight with me. I think our strength is about the same. Don't dawdle, let's fight. You've been hiding for a few days. Are all evil cultivators like you? Hearing this, Shishan knew that he had indeed been discovered. However, he couldn't help but feel astonished. He had concealed his aura so well. So how did this brat find out that he was a heretical cultivator? Suppressing the doubts in his heart, Shishan Almighty immediately appeared without hesitation, releasing a powerful aura, and sneered, Humph, boy, did you see wrongly? This old man is at the late stage of profound ascension, and you are just at the late stage of yuanying. How can our strength be the same? There's a huge difference. You'll only know how weak you are when you fight. Don't talk so much nonsense. My hands have been itching for a long time. Lin Yi cracked his knuckles as he spoke. He thought that the guy would have made his move a long time ago, but he didn't think that the guy would have dragged it out like a tortoise. He had to admit that the tortoise was pretty fast. Itchy hands? This old man thinks that your skin is itching for death. Reckless dog, you actually dare to provoke our Western Mountain Old Sect. Today I, the Western Mountain Almighty, will take your head to congratulate the Old Sect. The Western Mountain Almighty mocked. West Mountain Old Master? You're also from the West Mountain Evil Sect? Lin, he couldn't help but be stunned. He only heard that the ghost said that he was a heretical cultivator, but he didn't expect to encounter the West Mountain Evil Sect even in the East Continent. It was really a small world for enemies. He thought that this guy was simply an assassin that Renjong Yuan and the others found to deal with him. You're lucky that you can survive until now after provoking our West Mountain Old Master. But today, your luck has come to an end. Die. The Western Mountain Almighty said as he stretched out his claws in the direction of Lin Yi. Lin Yi suddenly felt an incomparably terrifying suction force in front of him. It was actually trying to suck him over. This was not a simple telekinesis. If he hadn't been on guard in advance to protect his body with true chi, all the meridians and blood vessels in his body would have burst, and his whole body might have directly turned into a cloud of blood mist. A heretical cultivator was indeed a heretical cultivator. Just a casual attack was such an extremely sinister move. With a thought, he suddenly gave up resisting, and his whole body was instantly sucked over. Seeing this, the Western Mountain Almighty was overjoyed. You guys who claim to be from the righteous sects just love to brag. What bullshit about fighting an enemy with a higher realm? That's all there is to it. This move of his was called Opening Claw. As the name suggested, once one was hit by his claw, one's stomach would immediately be cut open. Even if one's true chi protected one's body, it would be useless because the true chi protection would be instantly pierced by the tip of his claw. As for the remaining flesh and blood, there was no need to even mention it. The distance between them quickly closed, and just when it looked like he was about to be hit, not only did Lenny not think of a way to slow down, but he suddenly shot true chi from his back to push the boat with the current. His speed suddenly increased by a lot, and his whole body suddenly attacked the Western Mountain Almighty like a cannonball. Seeing this, the Western Mountain Almighty was shocked. By the time he reacted, he was already in front of him. Both of his palms were surging with fiery will, and it was completely red with the profound state of yin and yang 8 trigrams. How dare you? What a reckless junior. Seeing this, the Western Mountain Almighty was furious. A mere nascent soul late stage dared to do this. It was clear that he did not put him in his eyes. His opening claw, which could suck people through the air, was indeed full of flaws in the eyes of many masters. Just like now, it was easy for others to borrow strength to fight back. Unfortunately, these people had forgotten that he was a profound ascension late-stage master. How can existence at his level be so easily full of flaws? When a flaw was particularly obvious, it was very likely to be a deliberate trap. Those masters who saw this move and felt that they could take advantage of it, when they borrowed strength to fight back and hitched a ride on the powerful suction, the final result was unbearable to look at without exception. And now, under his opening claw, there was going to be another dead soul. On the surface, the Western Mountain Almighty pretended to be shocked and angry, but in his heart, he was about to burst into laughter. How could such a stupid thing escape from the hands of the old sect? His dog-shit luck was against the heavens. In the blink of an eye, the two had already met face to face. The 5 fingertips of the Western Mountain Almighty were emitting a terrible and terrifying black gas. Without dodging, he directly grabbed at Lin Yi's frenzied fire 8 trigrams palm. In the eyes of many people, they thought that the most terrifying part of the opening claw was the powerful suction force of the exploding blood vessels. As long as one could withstand this force, one could easily deal with it. After all, the claw itself did not have any terrifying power to speak of. In fact, it was the opposite. The suction force was just a cover. The real terrifying part of this move was still the opening claw. The more ugly something was, the more deadly it was. Chapter 48:14. Fortunately, Lin Yi's reaction was fast enough. At the critical moment, he directly used the extreme butterfly steps. That was how he was able to barely avoid the dangerous claws of the opponent and avoid being killed in one hit. Hee, my claws are invincible. I can even break divine weapons. You're just a late-stage original level cultivator, and you dare to compete with me? You have no self-awareness at all. How stupid. The mighty figure laughed proudly. He can even break divine weapons? He raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. He thought to himself, don't brag without a draft. If it weren't for the fact that his weapon couldn't be formed at the last step, he would definitely show this guy what he said today. I threw a lot of rare materials into it. If it can still be broken with bare hands, then I really don't need to live anymore. There's no need for divine weapons. Break this move of mine first. Before Lin Yi's voice died away, accompanied by a dragon's roar, the murderous aura of the 5 elements attacked directly towards the mighty figure of West Mountain. Hee, You dog that hasn't seen the world. Do you really think I'm just talking big? Seeing this, the mighty figure of West Mountain didn't hesitate to reach out towards the murderous aura of the five elements. The claws were the move that he was famous for. Even today, it was still his main martial arts skill. Breaking divine weapons was not a boast. It was real. In the blink of an eye, the mighty figure of West Mountain had already grabbed the murderous aura of the five elements. However, before he could show a proud expression, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his clawed hand. When he took a closer look, he suddenly turned pale with fright. The murderous aura of the five elements was not broken by him at all. Instead, it directly wrapped around his arm. At this moment, the black gas on his claw had been crushed by the murderous aura of the five elements. The so-called invincible claws of the five elements were broken by itself. His five fingertips were bleeding profusely. If he didn't find a way to quickly escape, even if he was lucky enough to escape with his life, he would definitely lose his arm. I say, were the divine weapons you encountered before made of paper? Could you even break them like that? Lenny looked at him with a calm and unruffled expression. The five elemental killing aura was an extremely aggressive and ferocious force. It was complicated and profound, and no force in the world could compare to it, let alone the evil chi of a mere evil cultivator. In front of the five elemental killing aura, it was simply trash. The mighty figure of West Mountain was angry and anxious. He couldn't care less about Lin Yi's mockery. He tried his best to shake off the five elemental killing aura that was entangling his arm, but his evil energy was completely restrained by the five elemental killing aura. No matter how much it came, it would be destroyed. After struggling for a while, there was still no sign of it weakening. It seemed that the ghost was right. Although this guy was a profound ascension late-stage master, his real strength was not comparable to Lung Rufin, who was at the early profound ascension early stage. At least when the latter faced the five elemental killing aura, he was far more powerful. As long as he swung his blade, the five elemental killing aura could only be cut. It could only be said that comparing oneself to others was infuriating. Lung Rufin was a freak who could cultivate the blade force. No matter where he was a genius among geniuses. On the other hand, the evil cultivator of West Mountain was far worse. Of course, if this guy's aptitude was as heaven-defying as Lung Rufin, he wouldn't be an evil cultivator. Go to hell. The mighty figure of West Mountain was really anxious now. In order to crush the murderous aura of the five elements wrapped around his arm, he did not hesitate to pour out all of his evil aura. His entire body was instantly enveloped by black aura, and even the surrounding area of several dozen feet around him became pitch black, as if an evil demon had descended upon the world. When so much extremely rich evil energy gathered together, the five elemental killing aura finally showed some signs of defeat and was gradually expelled and eroded. Just a five elemental killing aura was enough to force a profound ascension late-stage evil cultivator into such an embarrassing situation. As a Yuaning late-stage master, Lin Yi could already be proud. However, there was still a bit of regret on his face. The five elemental killing aura was his strongest move now. Sure enough, it was still too difficult to kill the opponent in one move. After all, the difference in strength between them was too big. Of course, even if he couldn't kill the opponent in one move, it was not a big problem to simply kill the opponent. At most, it would take some effort. Take your life while you're sick. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't have the habit of letting the enemy recover. Before the Shishan Master could completely destroy the five elements, a blue arc shot through the air, and the Shishan Master didn't even have a chance to react under this lightspeed attack. He was hit in an instant. The blue arc flashed and disappeared into his forehead, and the West Mountain mighty figure's whole body suddenly froze. This was the time when he concentrated all the evil energy in his body to deal with the five elemental killing aura. Although the blue arc itself did not have any damage, this sudden paralysis effect was simply killing him. The West Mountain mighty figure was in a stalemate for a moment, and the originally weakened 5 elemental killing aura immediately made a comeback. The most terrible thing was that he took the opportunity to add another one. Anyway, for him, there was an endless supply of Zhenqi. As long as there was time and space, it was easy to throw 8 or 10 of them. A dignified, profound ascension, late-stage, evil cultivator, at this time, could only look at the 2 intertwined 5 elemental killing aura on his arms speechlessly. Especially every time he was about to use all his strength to expel it, there would immediately be another blue arc on top of his head. The paralysis effect was so annoying that the West Mountain mighty figure was about to cry. Damn it, can I still keep this arm of mine? I really didn't realize it before, but I didn't expect you to be so wretched. Seeing the West Mountain mighty figure in a fluster, the ghost thing suddenly laughed. Senior, don't talk nonsense. How am I wretched? He was speechless. You're not wretched? Relying on your endless Zhenqi to use all kinds of life-risking ultimate moves, the power of thunder and lightning, and the 5 elemental killing aura, and you still hide far away. If this isn't wretched, then what is? The ghost thing curled its lips. Senior, this is called a sense of crisis. If this guy has any trump cards, wouldn't it be courting death to rush up rashly? He corrected it in a bad mood. He wanted to rush up and fight with his fists, but the problem was that the other party was a profound ascension late-stage expert, and not a soft persimmon that could be pinched by others. If he rushed up at this time, he would definitely become the other party's breakthrough point. It was obvious that he could rely on a series of moves to properly kill the opponent, but in the end, he still wanted to rush up and play with fire. In Lin Yi's view, this was not called bravery, but idiocy. Chapter 48:15. He couldn't help but be a little speechless at his bad taste. However, just as the two were talking, the West Mountain mighty figure, who was about to be tortured by the murderous aura of the 5 elements and the power of thunder and lightning, suddenly let out an inhuman roar. When he reacted, this guy had already disappeared, and there was something left at the place where he was just now. He looked carefully and was shocked. It was a bloody arm. Escaped? He couldn't help but be a little speechless when he saw this scene. The evil cultivator was really ruthless. In order to get rid of the murderous aura of the 5 elements, he did not hesitate to cut off an arm. Although this was the simplest and most effective method, there were definitely not many people who could have such courage to do this. He didn't know that this West Mountain mighty figure was really a ruthless person. Looking around, he could no longer find the figure of the West Mountain mighty figure. Except for the bloody broken arm on the ground, there was not even a trace of blood left in other places. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. It seems that he really escaped. Lin Yi's face suddenly showed a little pity. This West Mountain mighty figure obviously wanted to kill him. No matter what, he had to get rid of him, otherwise there would be a big hidden danger in the future. But although he seemed to be very relaxed just now, in fact, he had already used all his means. Since the other party used this kind of method to escape, there was really no way he could do anything about it. After looking around and finding no more unusual movements, he immediately prepared to continue his journey. At this moment, a strange change suddenly occurred. A powerful black gas rose from all directions, and the blood and evil revealed in it made people breathless. The originally bright sky became turbid in the blink of an eye, and one could not see their fingers in front of them. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. Without hesitation, he used the super butterfly micro-step to leave the place. Although it was almost a one-sided beating of the opponent just now, he still could not be careless. Underestimating any profound ascension late stage, Cultivator's desperate counterattack was no different from suicide. Although he was in the dark, it could not block his divine senses. After locking onto the direction, he quickly moved. The speed of the super butterfly subtle steps was unquestionable, and he was able to move 10 miles away in an instant. However, the strange thing was that no matter how hard he tried to dodge, he could not escape from the black gas. He was shocked. It was impossible for the black gas to envelop the surrounding 100 miles. How terrifying was its power? As soon as this thought appeared, it was rejected by himself. This was because his divine sense told him that this black chi could only cover an area of 5 kilometers at most. The reason why he couldn't get rid of it was purely because when he moved, this black chi was also moving rapidly with him. But why didn't he see the mighty figure of West Mountain? He was secretly puzzled. He did not detect the figure of the Shishan Almighty in the black chi. Otherwise, he would have used the 5 elements killing chi and the power of thunder and lightning to deal with this guy. Could it be that the guy just released this black chi to trap people, and he took advantage of the situation to escape? This was not impossible, but since this black chi could move, there must be someone controlling it. It was impossible that the Shishan Almighty just made a mark on him and let the black chi follow him from then on, right? Then I can't see the light? This is too fucked up. When Lenny thought of this, he could not help but feel speechless. Although he could use his divine sense to explore the surroundings, and this black chi could not really hinder his movements, anyone would be annoyed after staying in this dark environment for a long time. How would he see people like this? In particular, this black chi was full of blood and evil. It did not affect him for a while, but who knew if there would be any terrible side effects after a long time? Don't worry, you don't need to see the light in the future, because you will soon go to see the King of Hell, Jia 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 Jia. A bone-chilling voice suddenly sounded from all directions. It was the mighty figure of West Mountain who had disappeared without a trace. He was suddenly shocked. It turned out that this guy did not escape, but had been hiding around him. But why did his divine sense not find him? Could it be that this black chi could not block the divine sense, but it could have a confusing effect, making his divine sense blind to the Shishan Almighty who was close at hand? The King of Hell? I am not very familiar with him, so please help me say hello first. He was vigilant of everything around him, and he sneered. I saw that in order to save your life, you even gave up your arm, and I thought you were a smart person who knew when to advance and when to retreat. I didn't expect you to dare to stay behind and play tricks. Are you evil cultivators so stupid? You reckless dog. Do you really think I will run away? The Shishan Almighty's voice was suddenly angry, and it seemed that he was provoked by Lin Yi's words. He gritted his teeth and said, I admit that I have indeed underestimated you. A mere late nascent soul stage can force me to this point, forcing me to cut off my arm. This is just right. I will let you have a good look today, and let you see our Shishan faction's signature skill. Shishan Evil Faction's signature skill? Is it to cut off your own arm? That's very powerful, but I'm very curious about how many arms you have. If you cultivate a few more times, won't you be dismembered by 5 horses? He was secretly on guard, but his words were mercilessly provoking the Almighty's nerves. As long as he made the Almighty impulsive and angry, he would have a chance to find a flaw and kill him. Jia Jia, it seems that you really have not seen the world. You don't even know our most powerful blood sacrifice. Then just wait for your death. As the Shishan Almighty's voice fell, the smell of blood in the surrounding black gas became more and more intense, and even faintly showed signs of turning red, giving people the feeling that they were trapped in blood. Not only was it extremely disgusting, but it was also difficult to move. The warning of the jade pendant suddenly sounded, and he did not have time to guess what was going on. He did not hesitate to escape, but this time his speed was greatly affected, and he could only reach half of his previous speed, and the black gas that had turned into blood was like maggots in his bones, and he could not get rid of it for a while. You still want to escape at this time? I will pay the price of an arm for the blood sacrifice. Do you think you can still escape? No matter how stupid and ignorant you are, there should be a limit. Jia, 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 Jia. The Shishan Almighty sneered. He was very anxious. The blood sacrifice that the other party mentioned was an extremely evil and powerful move. Maybe it was the trump card of these evil cultivators. Even a rabbit would bite when it was cornered, Not to mention that the other party was an evil cultivator in the late profound ascension stage. This was really not easy to deal with. Chapter 48:16. But the problem was that he couldn't find the other party's real body. If he continued to be entangled, it would be his turn to be beaten up unilaterally. He didn't even know how to fight back. Just as Lin, he was thinking about how to deal with it. An amazing suction suddenly came from behind him. At first, it felt similar to the previous Ripper Claw, but then he realized that something was wrong. This time, not only was the force 10 times stronger than before, but because of the bloody black gas around him, he felt as if he had sunk into a quagmire. Even the slightest movement was extremely strenuous, not to mention resisting the sudden suction force behind him. In the darkness, a ferocious bloody finger with a dim light was pressed against Lin Yi's back. It was about to pierce his heart from behind in the next moment, but Lin Yi was unaware of it. Fortunately, there was a warning from the jade pendant. At the critical moment, Lin Yi did not hesitate to use extreme butterfly microsteps. At the same time, he spared no effort to madly eject genuine chi behind him. His whole body finally broke free from the double shackles of the blood and the suction and rushed forward like a cannonball. However, before Lin Yi could breathe a sigh of relief, the warning from the jade pendant suddenly sounded again. This time, the suction from behind suddenly changed direction and directly sucked forward. Because of the speed that he had just burst out with all his strength, Lin Yi couldn't even stop this time. His body rushed forward uncontrollably. Finally, Lin Yi found the ferocious bloody finger waiting in front of him. His scalp suddenly went numb because he couldn't control himself at all. If this went on, he would be pierced by the bloody finger. At first glance, this bloody finger was 100 times more dangerous than the Ripper Claw just now. Fuck it. At the critical moment, Lin Yi's blood was finally aroused. He couldn't care so much anymore. Since he couldn't stop, he would rush forward and see who was fiercer than who. At this moment, Lin Yi sent 2 5-elements murderous aura forward, and at the same time, he added the power of thunder and lightning. If he did this, he would definitely be hurt by the bloody finger, but the mighty figure Shishan would definitely not be much better. It was completely a posture of fighting with his life. You want to exchange a life for a life with this old man? You're looking down on me too much. The mighty figure of West Mountain sneered. Before he finished speaking, the bloody finger in front of him silently disappeared into the blood. Lin, he was horrified. Although the path ahead of him had become smooth, everything he had done just now had been for naught. This result was much more depressing than having both sides suffer losses, because he was simply being toyed with by the opponent. Only Lin, he could continuously replenish his true chi at any time. If it was someone else, just this one move would cause a great loss in strength. This Shishan Almighty was really sinister and cunning. He could easily consume the opponent's true chi with just a few dangerous moves. It was practically effortless. This blood sacrifice is really strange. Lin, he complained in his heart. Because of the lingering black gas and blood around him, this place had completely become the opponent's home ground. He couldn't even touch a shadow. The opponent could fight whenever he wanted to and leave whenever he wanted to. If he relaxed, even a little, the consequences would be unimaginable. If this continued, even a mortal would be dragged down. It seems that this is not a trash, evil cultivator. He's quite capable. He even knows such an arrogant trick like blood sacrifice. Although the level of blood sacrifice is relatively low, it is invincible in the profound ascending stage. You're really unlucky. Hurry up and find a way to escape. You can't beat him. The ghostly thing said calmly. Damn, Senior, you've tricked me to death. Lin, he suddenly complained. Before, it was the ghostly thing who instigated him to lure out the mighty figure of West Mountain and kill him. The result was great. Instead, it was the other party who kept chasing him, and he couldn't do anything about it. This time, he was really tricked by the ghostly thing. How would I know that a mere evil cultivator of the profound ascending stage would also know blood sacrifice. This is your own bad luck. You can't blame it on me. The ghostly thing smiled embarrassedly. In fact, this matter really couldn't be blamed on him. Even with his vision and knowledge, blood sacrifice was a powerful move. The existence of the blood sacrifice domain made these evil cultivators invincible. In addition, their attack power would also increase along with the first mates. So, when facing experts of the same level, it was as easy as cutting melons and vegetables. They could even easily kill enemies of a higher level. The only bad thing was that the price of using this technique was very high. Just like this time, the almighty expert of the West Mountain directly used up one of his arms. Okay, it's my own bad luck, okay. He was speechless for a while and smiled bitterly. This time, he had completely given up the idea of continuing to deal with the mighty figure of West Mountain. After all, even the ghostly thing said that it couldn't beat the other party. Then there was definitely no way to fight. The restriction effect of the blood sacrifice domain was obvious, especially for those masters of speed. Once trapped in it, they would be restrained to death. Fortunately, the difference between Lin Yi and the ordinary masters of speed was that his speed was faster, and his true chi was unlimited. With the terrifying speed of the extreme butterfly micro-step, even after it was reduced by 50%, it was still very impressive. In addition, from time to time, Lin Yi would release a burst of true chi regardless of the cost. Not only did the whole person maintain the extremely fast inertia, but the more important thing was that the trajectory of the movement was erratic. One moment it was left, the next moment it was right. Every change was very abrupt and without warning. It made the mighty figure of West Mountain, who had the absolute initiative, unable to find a suitable opportunity to kill him. This dog runs fast. The mighty figure of West Mountain suddenly couldn't calm down. He paid the price of an arm to use the blood sacrifice. If he still couldn't kill Lin Yi, then it would be a big loss. In fact, in this blood sacrifice domain, if he was willing to fight with Lin Yi until both of them were injured, there would be opportunities like just now. But he was not willing. He had already paid an arm. If he fought with someone else until both of them were injured, it was estimated that he would be crippled even if he didn't die. Then even if he killed Lin Yi, what was the point? He killed Lin Yi just to pave the way with Lin Yi's head so that he could get on the line of the West Mountain Old Master and then soar to the sky. But if he was crippled because of this, his strength would greatly decline. Then, not to mention soar to the sky, just the evil cultivators of the same sect here would be able to skin him alive. The mighty figure of West Mountain who used the blood sacrifice to escape was powerful. But in terms of the ability to escape, even the West Mountain Old Master who was at the opening stage couldn't do anything to Lin Yi, let alone him who was at the late stage of profound ascension. Chapter 48:17. I really underestimated you. A mere late, nascent soul stage cultivator can actually escape so easily. No wonder you can escape from the old master. Shishan was pissed off. He almost got him a couple of times, but Lin Yi was always able to dodge at the last moment. It was a stroke of genius, and he'd failed several times. Then why are you still chasing? Are you sure you can do something that even the old master couldn't do? I want to see how long you can last with your little chi. Lin Yi sneered. You want to compete with me? You're just a nascent soul stage cultivator. Where do you get your confidence from? The Almighty being suddenly laughed. Although he also felt that Lin Yi's chi was not normal, he did not believe that he, a late profound ascension stage cultivator, would lose to a late nascent soul stage cultivator. He chased and sneered. You dog, I've heard about your story. You were able to escape from the old master because you escaped into the South Island, but there are no spirit beasts here. Really? Who told you that I'm looking for the spirit beasts? Do you dare to run around in the East Continent as a heretic? Lin Yi said as he used chi again, narrowly dodging the other party's surprise attack. He'd lost count of how many times he'd chased after him. This Shishan master wasn't as oppressive as the Shishan elder, but he had to admit that this guy wouldn't stop chasing after him, and it was very troublesome. If it weren't for the jade, he'd have died a dozen times already. But fortunately, the other party was a heretic. From the previous actions, it could be seen that this guy did not dare to make a move within the school's sphere of influence. So as long as he escaped to any of the main schools, he would definitely be able to escape. It was a pity that he only looked at the route to the Morningstar Academy and did not pay attention to any other schools along the way. At this time, he could not look at the route, so he could only escape in the direction of the Morningstar Academy according to his memory. Otherwise, he would have already escaped. You dog, don't even think about escaping. After hearing Lin Yi's words, the Almighty was so angry that he yelled, and the hideous bloody finger appeared again and again. After all, as Lin Yi said, if this kid escaped to the main school, he would really be at his wit's end. As a result, Lin Yi was surrounded by danger. It was only because of the Jade's warning and his quick thinking of using the Raging Fire 1,000 Bursting Fist to create chaos that he was able to barely escape from death a few times. Finally, after crossing the endless mountains and forests, they encountered more and more cultivators. However, no one dared to make a move when they saw a large mass of bloody black gas coming at them from afar. They all ran far away and watched with folded arms. After all, no one wanted to be a busybody and get into trouble. Fortunately, Chunxing City was not far ahead. Lin Yi was happy to see this. As long as he escaped, the Almighty Being would not dare to chase him. You think you can escape like this? Go and die. Seeing this, the Almighty Being could not care about anything else. This time, in order to block Lin Yi's path, he did not hesitate to reveal his true form. There was no other way. If he did not stop this kid now, he would not have another chance. Lin Yi could not help but be shocked. If they were in the wilderness, he might really fight to the death with the Almighty Being, because this was the only chance he had to lock onto the Almighty Being. However, it was different now. The chance of winning was probably less than 30%, and now that he was one step away from entering Chunxing City, even a fool wouldn't know what to choose. Boom! There was a sudden loud sound in the bloody black gas, and even the ground around Chunxing City shook. Then, a figure rushed out of the bloody black gas, looking slightly pathetic, and rushed into Chunxing City without stopping. Fortunately, I prepared a vital energy bomb in advance. Otherwise, it would be hard to tell if I'm dead or alive. Lin Yi looked back with lingering fear. At this moment, because he had attracted a lot of people to watch, the bloody black gas had disappeared into thin air. Even the Almighty Being was nowhere to be seen. It seemed that he had escaped when he saw that the situation was not good. At the same time, a one-armed man appeared in the crowd outside the city. It was the Almighty Being. This bastard! How could he be so cunning? The Almighty Being watched from afar as Lin Yi entered Chunxing City. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth. In theory, the blood sacrifice domain could turn the enemy's vital energy attack into his own. That was why he could last for so long. In fact, the more Lin Yi attacked, the longer he could maintain the blood sacrifice domain. However, it was different this time. The power of the vital energy bomb directly exceeded the upper limit of the blood sacrifice domain. Not only did it shatter the blood sacrifice domain, it even caused the Almighty Being to suffer a heavy backlash. No, I can't let him escape so easily. I'm going to risk it all. The Almighty Being gritted his teeth and walked towards Chunxing City. Under normal circumstances, he would not dare to enter a school's main city. However, it was not completely impossible. As long as everyone was not carefully checked during martial law, it would not be a problem for him to sneak in as long as he kept a low profile. Of course, as sneaking around, the Almighty Being would not dare to make a move in the city, not to mention openly killing someone. If he revealed even the slightest bit of an evil cultivator's aura, he would definitely die a horrible death. The orthodox cultivators might not dare to meddle in other people's business outside, but it was different in Chunxing City. After all, there were many people, the Almighty Being followed from afar. Seeing that Lin Yi had checked into a large inn, he quickly turned around and found a corner to squat down. He watched the direction of the inn while sighing gloomily. Now that he had lost an arm and suffered the backlash of the blood sacrifice domain, he wanted to find a place to recuperate and recuperate. Unfortunately, with his identity as an evil cultivator, he did not dare to follow Lin Yi into such a large and in the main city. The checks in such a place were much stricter than outside. As an evil cultivator, he could not hide at all. Lin Yi was different. He was a legitimate disciple of the 3 pavilions of the North Island. Moreover, he had an identity token, so there was no problem at all for him to check in. Of course, the price of such a place was definitely not cheap. However, was Lin Yi someone who lacked spiritual jades? That trash evil cultivator is still following him. I didn't know that this guy was not only strong, but also quite persistent. The ghostly thing reminded him jokingly. I know. From the looks of it, he doesn't dare to make a move in the city. Whatever, I'll deal with him when I have the chance. Lin Yi lay comfortably on the bed with his arms and legs spread out. The escape had really tired him out. Even if his true chi was endless, the mental pressure alone was not easy to bear. Chapter 48:18. After resting for a whole day in the inn, Lin Yi finally recovered his energy. He was eager to see Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaodao, but he didn't head to the Morning Star Academy just like that. After wandering around for so long, Lin Yi had a lot of experience, and he knew that he had to ask some questions first. Only by finding out the rules and the way would he be able to get twice the result with half the effort. Otherwise, with the East Continent Academy's attitude, he'd get into trouble if he rashly barged in, especially if he accidentally pissed off someone powerful. He wouldn't even know how he died. Coming out of the inn, Lin Yi glanced at the West Mountain powerhouse in the faraway street corner with a faint smile. He was a profound Ascension late-stage evil practitioner, but now he'd almost become a beggar on the street, and there were even people giving him alms. Just thinking about it was pitiful. After asking around for a bit, Lin Yi headed straight for the largest market in Morningstar City. There were many people here, and it was the best place to ask about all sorts of news. Following the flow of people, they wandered in the marketplace. In terms of scale, this marketplace was not much worse than the North Islands. But considering that this was just a small city in Dongzhou State, and the marketplace in the North Island represented the highest standard in the North Island, the gap between them was self-evident. After a while, Lin Yi followed the crowd to a notice board. There were all kinds of announcements, and a large group of people gathered there to watch, whispering to each other. Lin Yi glanced at it. There were all kinds of announcements, such as wanted posters, new rules of the main city, current news, and so on. The one that attracted the most attention was an announcement about an auction. Morningstar auction ceremony. Lin Yi looked at the contents of the announcement while listening to the discussions around him. He couldn't help but feel a little moved. Since he was here, he might as well go and join in the fun. From the looks of it, this auction was the highest standard auction in Morningstar City. He had never seen an auction in the Eastern Continent for 2 months, so he was sure that there would be all kinds of super high-grade rare treasures. After all, this was the Eastern Continent, and the standard couldn't be lower than the auctions on the other Heaven Rank Islands. Although he had this thought, it shouldn't be that easy to participate in the Morningstar auction. Although the time and location were stated on the notice, there was no other concrete information. It also didn't say what qualifications one had to have to enter. It couldn't be that just anyone could sneak in. It seemed that he had to find someone to investigate the specific situation. After a few glances, Lin Yi retreated and continued to stroll around the market. From what he knew, markets in many places didn't just trade goods. In fact, there were also local tyrants who specialized in trading information. As long as one could afford the price, it was easy to find all kinds of secret information from these people. However, many of these local tyrants had underground businesses that couldn't see the light of day. If one didn't pay attention to the special signs on the streets, it would be very difficult to find them just by strolling around. Fortunately, Lin Yi was experienced and knowledgeable. As long as he paid attention, it shouldn't be difficult to find them. After going with the flow for a while, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. It wasn't because he found some street signs, but because the signboard of the Merchant Association in front of him made him feel very familiar. Morningstar City's Hong Merchant Association. Although he didn't plan to buy anything, and he didn't know anyone in this place, he was only an honorary vice president. Within the Hong Merchant Association, only Hong Zhong and Honest Chai were familiar with him. He hadn't even seen the others. However, he still walked in subconsciously. "What do you need, sir?" A waiter immediately came up to greet him warmly. His etiquette was very on point. It could be seen that he was well-trained. Just in terms of the quality of his employees, he was better than the other branches on Heaven Island. "Oh, nothing, I'm just looking around." He waved his hand. He didn't plan to reveal his identity for the time being. Although his status as the honorary vice president was considered high and mighty, not every branch would be willing to give in to him. If he rashly went to the branch manager here to inquire about information, it might instead cause unexpected problems. Who knew if it would be another Wei Xiaodong? "That's good. Sir, if you need anything, feel free to call me." The waiter smiled and left tactfully. Looking along the rows of goods, Lin Yi's eyes couldn't help but light up. He actually saw some 6th and even 7th grade elixirs, and there were quite a few of them. This greatly surprised Lin Yi. These were rare goods that were rarely seen on the market. Although there were no heaven-defying 7th grade elixirs like the Thundershin pill or the Beauty pill among them, there were still 6th and 7th grade elixirs. He had never seen such high-grade elixirs in the Northern Island branch. Even if there were, they would not be publicly displayed on the first floor, and there would not be so many of them. If these elixirs were to be auctioned in the Middle Island, North Island, or even the extreme North Island, it would definitely be an unimaginable astronomical figure. The prices here weren't low either, but they couldn't be compared to the prices on the other Sky-class islands. He realized a huge loophole. If someone were to specifically buy the 6th and 7th level pills here and bring them to the other Sky-class islands to be auctioned, wouldn't they be able to make a huge profit off the price difference? However, after seeing the line of text at the bottom of these elixirs display cabinets, he suddenly understood that such an obvious loophole could not exist, because it was clearly written, "The above elixirs are only sold in the Yellow Sea area of the East Continent." These elixirs are actually sold in different regions. Although he could figure out the reason, he still felt a little surprised because this method was exactly the same as those in the secular world. After all, some things in the secular world were also sold in different regions, and shopping malls were not allowed to trade goods at will. He did not expect that the same rule would be set here. Sure enough, all businessmen in the world were smart people. The waiter had been paying attention to Lin Yi's side. Seeing this, he immediately came up and explained enthusiastically, "Sir, you may not know this, but most of the chambers of commerce in the East Continent cooperate with the alchemists of the Academy. Therefore, in order to ensure the transcendent status of the East Continent, these elixirs can only be circulated in the East Continent and are not allowed to be sold outside." Chapter 4819. What if someone buys it and secretly brings it to other Heaven Stage islands? You can't check them one by one, can you? He asked with great interest. If they went out of the East Continent, they would have to be searched one by one to prevent them from carrying any elixirs. Unfortunately, this was impossible. It's useless. Even if someone buys it and secretly brings it out, they can't sell it publicly because each of these restricted elixirs has a special mark number. The chambers of commerce on other Heaven Stage islands are not allowed to buy it privately, let alone sell it privately. Otherwise, they will be heavily punished by the merchant union, the waiter explained with a smile. "I see." He nodded. However, there was still a possibility of being smuggled. After all, as long as they didn't sell it publicly, they could trade it secretly without anyone knowing. Of course, this was not a small risk, because it was equivalent to offending the East Continent and the Merchant Union at the same time. Once it was found out, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, as long as the benefits were high enough, there would always be people who would take the risk. It was almost impossible to completely eliminate this kind of thing. However, there was a more difficult factor, and that was the treasure ships and battleships that came and went. Not everyone could go to other islands if they wanted to. While Lin and Lin were talking, another waiter was also paying attention to this side. After listening for a while, he hurriedly ran to report, "Shopkeeper, there's a man who doesn't seem to be from the East Continent asking about the restricted elixirs." He asked very carefully. Maybe he wants to buy elixirs and secretly smuggle them back. Do you want to keep an eye on him? Oh, I'll go and see for myself. The shopkeeper immediately stood up. This kind of thing could not be careless. If someone really smuggled out and was found, not only would the smuggler be killed, but the Chamber of Commerce that bought the elixirs would also be punished. After all, no one knew whether the two parties colluded or not. They would definitely be punished 50 times as a warning to others. The shopkeeper was led by the waiter to stand in front of Lin. After a careful look, he was stunned. He looked at Lin again and again in disbelief. Finally, he confirmed the identity of the shopkeeper and said, "Vice President Lin?" Lin heard the voice and turned to look at the person. He couldn't help but be stunned. "Shopkeeper Chai, why are you here?" The person who had arrived was none other than Honest Chai, whom Lin had personally groomed in the South Continent. However, this fellow was not obediently staying at the Y-Arc branch in South Continent as a shopkeeper. What was he doing here? Could it be that he had been transferred to East Continent? Listening to the conversation between the two waiters couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. As it turned out, this fellow was actually an acquaintance of the shopkeeper. However, which faction was the title of vice president? He couldn't possibly be from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, right? The names of the vice presidents were all recorded during training, but none of them had the surname Lin, right? Vice President Lin, it really is you. I didn't dare to recognize you at first glance and thought I was seeing things. I didn't expect to meet you here. Honest Chai was pleasantly surprised and suggested, "It's not convenient to reminisce here. Why don't we go to a private room and have some tea?" "All right." Linny nodded, and the two of them sat down in the private room. Honest Chai quickly ordered someone to brew a pot of high-grade spiritual tea, and when there was no one around, Linny asked, "You're the shopkeeper here? In other words, you were transferred to the East Continent?" "That's right. I was just transferred here in the past half a year. I didn't expect to meet you here." Honest Chai was a little surprised and laughed, but then he slapped his head and said, "Look at my brain. You're the junior sister, Miss Huang, is in the Morning Star Academy. It's natural for you to come here." "Ha! From the Y-Arc branch of the South Continent to the Morning Star Academy branch of the East Continent, Shopkeeper Chai, this is a big promotion for you." Lin looked at him meaningfully. Although they were both shopkeepers, one was in the South Continent, while the other was in the East Continent. The difference in power between the two was like heaven and earth. Everyone knew that the East Continent branch was the most popular and lucrative position, but in the chaotic South Continent Sea region, it was undeniably a tough job. The profits from both sides were on completely different levels. In the past, Wei Xiaodong had been transferred from a vice shopkeeper here to the official shopkeeper of the Y-Arc branch of the South Continent. Even so, he had been promoted on the surface but demoted on the inside, causing him to feel depressed. One could imagine the difference between the two. "Vice President, you must be joking. This is all thanks to you. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have formed an alliance with the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. If it wasn't for you, how could we have become the new hegemon of the South Continent?" Honest Chai explained as he poured a cup of tea for Lin. "Oh, you mean that the Equal Heaven Escort Agency has contributed a lot?" Lin blinked his eyes. "That's right, we are all in the same boat. With the rise of the Equal Heaven Escort Agency, the business of our Y-Arc branch also rose with the tide, gradually expanding to the entire South Continent Sea region. If it wasn't for this, how could I have any achievements that would attract the attention of the higher-ups in the headquarters? Without any outstanding achievements, it would be impossible for me to be transferred to the East Continent." Honest Chai nodded. Transferred to the East Continent because of outstanding achievements? This reason sounded reasonable, but after careful consideration, Lin realized that it didn't hold up. One must know that in a place like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, one's achievements alone could not guarantee a promotion, especially with Honest Chai's meager qualifications. He had only been a branch manager for less than 2 years and was suddenly transferred to the East Continent. How could one be promoted so quickly? The lucrative positions in the East Continent branches were definitely in the hands of the higher-ups in the headquarters. Without the approval of these higher-ups, no matter how outstanding Honest Chai's achievements in the South Continent were, it was all for naught. Unless Hong Zhong gave him full support, then he would only have a sliver of a chance. However, Hong Zhong had been staying in the North Island all this time and had basically been pushed out of the core circle of the headquarters. Even if he wanted to help Honest Chai, it wouldn't be that easy. The last time Honest Chai was able to take the position of the Y-Arc branch manager was purely due to special circumstances. Thinking about it this way, the problem arose. How did Honest Chai get transferred to the East Continent? There must be a reason behind it, and it definitely wasn't as simple as his outstanding achievements. Unless he found another powerful backer. Honest Chai was someone that Lin Yi and Hong Zhong had groomed. To seek refuge with another backer without their approval was no different from betrayal. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.